Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the meeting is called to order. The Committee on Environment and Development will now consider Agenda Item 3, Accelerating Progress towards Sustainable Development through Synergistic Policies and Solutions. The document pertaining to this agenda item is ESCAP CED 9/5, Accelerating Progress towards Sustainable Development in Asia and the Pacific through Synergistic Policies and Solutions. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Lorenzo Santucci, Chief Environment and Development Policy Section, Environment and Development Division, to deliver the introductory presentation by the Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Chair, and very good afternoon to all distinguished delegates. It's my pleasure now to introduce this agenda item and the key findings and recommendations that are contained in the Asia-Pacific Synergies report that informs this agenda item. So why synergies matter? I mean, we've seen that over the past decades, the Asia-Pacific region has achieved remarkable socioeconomic progress and lifted millions of citizens out of poverty. However, development pathways across much of the region have relied heavily on resource-intensive production and consumption patterns and placing growing strain on ecosystems and natural resources. Despite some progress, the region is not on pace to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. According to recent assessments, it's projected that at the current pace, approximately 88% of measurable targets will not be reached by 2030. And this is especially true for the environment-related SDGs. In particular, as you can see here, climate action, which is actually regressing, life below water, or sustainable production and consumption. So part of the reason for the slow progress is that many of the environmental and developmental challenges in the region are inherently interconnected. Climate change exacerbates biodiversity loss and pollution. Degraded ecosystems undermine food security, health and disaster resilience, and pollution compounds climate and health risks, in particular in cities. And despite the clear interconnections between environment and development challenges, policy responses often remain fragmented. Climate change, biodiversity conservation, and pollution control are frequently addressed through separate policy frameworks supported by different institutions, financing mechanisms, and monitoring systems. And such fragmentation can limit policy effectiveness and create trade-offs between objectives. But the region has the opportunity to turn these interconnected crises into transformative opportunities by shifting towards integrated and synergistic approaches to development, by aligning policies, investments across climate, biodiversity, pollution, and development objectives. Synergistic approaches can help governments to manage trade-off, generate multiple benefits, and accelerate progress towards the achievement of the SDGs. Across the region, a growing number of initiatives have already demonstrated the potential of such approaches. And in this context, the Asia-Pacific Synergies Report, which has been prepared by the Secretariat in partnership with ADB, UNEP, and IGES, and with the support from the government of Japan, synthesizes the region's experiences with synergies into practical, policy-relevant lessons for decision makers at multiple levels. With the partners, we have collected over 140 case studies across the region, 36 of which are featured in the main report. And I take this opportunity to thank all the delegations that have sent case studies for the report. And as such, the Asia-Pacific Synergies Report is a practical guide and not just an analytical report. So we have here a limited copies because actually Secretariat has a, paper smart policy, so to reduce, printing and whatnot, but obviously we thought it would be important to give at least the country delegations one copy. So my colleagues will be going around and giving each delegation one copy. And then, if you haven't received one, you can approach my colleagues sitting to my left. So, building on the evidence from the region, the report identifies 4 synergistic and integrated approaches that represent high-impact entry points for action. First, health-centered climate action can be a powerful driver of ambition and equity. Climate change is already a defining health challenge in the region, shaping public concerns, political priorities, and investment decisions. Framing climate action through health and well-being makes abstract targets tangible, strengthens political feasibility while linking long-term efforts to immediate and direct local benefits, such as clean air, safer temperatures, and more resilient food systems. Second, nature-positive approaches to development provide a way to manage trade-offs across food, water, climate, and health objectives. Asia and the Pacific is home to extraordinary biodiversity, yet ecosystem degradation continues at alarming rates. Nature-positive approaches, including incentive mechanisms such as payment for ecosystem services, help align biodiversity conservation with climate resilience, food security, and livelihoods. Third, circular economy approaches across core provisioning systems for food, housing, mobility, and energy must address pollution at its source. Circular economy strategies that prioritize prevention, material efficiency, and value retention, for example, through strengthened extended producer responsibility, can deliver combined benefits for pollution reduction, climate change mitigation, public health, and economic development. And fourth, cities as delivery platforms for synergistic solutions. In addition to being at the front line of these interconnected crises, cities are also a critical delivery platform for synergies. Aligning land use, housing, transport, energy, water, and waste through coherent urban planning enables multiple benefits for resilience, inclusion, and well-being. Strengthening both alignment and the interface linking national frameworks and subnational implementation is essential to scale these synergies. While the potential benefit of synergistic approaches are increasingly recognized, their implementation requires enabling conditions that support integrated policymakers and coordinated action across sectors and levels of government. Financing that creates incentive for synergies is key. Fragmented financial flows, siloed data system, and institutional separation remain major barriers across the region. In order for synergistic approaches to deliver the desired results, it's necessary for financing mechanisms, regulatory requirements, and the blending of complementary resources to be carefully structured. Integrated data systems and planning tools can advance synergies. Integrated decision-making requires data systems that coherently, concretely illustrate the interlinkages, co-benefits, and trade-offs, and that are accessible across sectors and levels of government. Many times we see different departments hold different data sets, but these are not necessarily shared or across government levels. And that brings us to the third point, which is effective governance. That must move, arrangements must move beyond coordination to institutionalized mechanisms that align mandates, budget, and accountability across ministries and between national and local levels of government. Obviously, regional cooperation plays a critical role in developing and implementing synergistic solutions through shared frameworks and platforms, while supporting the scaling of synergistic approaches from pilot projects to policy. By synthesizing diverse local and sectoral experiences, regional cooperation can convert fragmented initiatives into policy-relevant solutions, harmonize approaches, reduce duplication of efforts, and lower implementation risks. Regional platforms enable countries and cities to jointly design, test, and deploy responses to transboundary challenges, including climate impacts, pollution, and ecosystem degradation, and strengthen peer learning, capacity development, and more coherent national and subnational action. So the report offers these strategic directions for policymakers and partners seeking to pursue synergies. First, to make synergies an organizing principle of national development strategies, climate action, biodiversity planning, and urban policy. Second, to promote cross-sectoral investment by aligning finance with multi-benefit outcomes across climate, biodiversity, pollution, and development to drive synergistic changes. Third, institutionalize whole-of-government and multi-level governance approaches with clear mandates, sharing indicators, and align incentives across ministries and levels of government. Fourth, empower cities and subnational governments and delivery platforms for synergistic solutions, supported by predictable financing and strengthened technical capacity. And fifth, leverage regional cooperation to synthesize evidence, harmonize approaches, and promote learning and scale effective solutions across different contexts. So that concludes my presentation, and obviously the Secretary looks forward to hearing from delegations about their experiences and success stories in pursuing integrated and synergistic policies beyond what is already captured in the report. And in this regard, I wish to inform delegates that the Secretariat and partners will continue to gather case studies and add them to a database, and we encourage all countries that have not done so already to share their case studies with us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Santucci. I got my copy this morning. Thank you for the copy of that report, and I've just started reading through it. And yesterday and the day before, I made some comments about the need for us, especially as ministers, as members of cabinet, when you're looking at the particular issue of institutionalizing whole-of-government approaches, and how even we within our own ministries, our own governments, we're dealing in silos and dealing with relevant line ministries that struggle to work together. And I face that myself back home, but I'm encouraged to see other governments, heads of delegations present here today who've been sharing their experiences on how to make it a little bit better for us to work together, just even within our own cabinets. So I will now convene the roundtable for this agenda item. So I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Shombi Sharp, Deputy Executive Secretary for Partnerships and Coordination, to moderate the roundtable.
May I please invite our wonderful panel up to the stage. Okay. Excellencies, distinguished participants here, it's a great honor and pleasure now to moderate this roundtable. I guess looking at the room, it's more of a horseshoe maybe than round, but we will shift now into, I think, digesting what Lorenzo, what our colleagues have shared with us, what you may have read if you've had a chance to go through the Asia-Pacific Synergies report just presented as well, and again to thank the colleagues, ADB and UNEP and the ESCAP colleagues for putting together that very important and very timely knowledge product and bringing evidence to this conversation. I think that we are very privileged to have what I would say is truly an all-star panel here today of some old friends and some new friends as well. So let me just, without further ado, I think it goes without saying that because of the complexities of climate and environment, really these are the issues, these are the paramount textbook issues of the challenges of managing public goods, of positive externalities, negative externalities, all of these things, which means quite simply that it is an all-of-society response and approach. So far beyond the ability of any single entity, of any single government, of any single community to tackle alone. And so therefore I'm very pleased to invite today, to welcome today our colleagues, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, chairperson of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and former chief scientist of the World Health Organization, and somebody whom I had the pleasure to meet actually as when I was UNRC in Delhi some years ago. First time welcome, and I'll be introducing each of you to speak as well. We have also Professor Kazuhiko Takuchi, president of the Institute for Global Environment Studies, as well here with us today. We have Mr. Yevgeny Zhukov, Director General of the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department of the Asian Development Bank. We have Mr. Daniel Violetti, Senior Director of the Programs Coordination for the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat, UNFCCC. We have Mr. Ravi Teja, Commissioner of Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India. Welcome. And we have Ms. Esther An, Chief Sustainability Officer from City Developments Limited of Singapore and member of the ESCAP Sustainable Business Council as well. So please join me in a round of welcoming applause for this great panel. Now, just to jump right in, I would turn first to Dr. Swaminathan and say, first of all, namaste. Aapka ESCAP mein swagat hai. Welcome to ESCAP. Dr. Soumya, health-centered approaches to climate and clean air action can help drive ambition and deliver multiple co-benefits. This is very clear. Certainly, I saw that, we've seen that in India, you know, as really something that one can show the economics of renewable energy is already very positive and profitable. But then when you show the health impacts and really the multiples are quite staggering, the benefit. But from your experience, what is required to realize this potential? What still are the barriers remaining? What can the entry points be? And what would you see as being the value of regional cooperation in this endeavor? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all. I've been very happy to be associated with writing of the Synergies report, especially for bringing health into the center of climate action. I think that is what I'm going to try and convince you all about today, that we should not just see health as a co-benefit. Often we are using that term co-benefit. It suggests that, you know, health is a nice side effect of climate action. But I'd really push back a little bit on that and say that health is not a side effect of the crisis. It is frequently the leading edge of it, because it is now people feeling the heat in their bodies before the Met Department is telling them that the temperature is elevated. It's pregnant women losing their babies, losing their pregnancies to heat stress. And so health, I think, is not only the fastest moving and most visible, and it also should be a politically salient part of this climate story. So I would argue that health should be sequenced first in the ambition conversation, not added as a co-benefit later. So let me answer the 4 questions that you asked. And the first thing is, what is required? I want to talk about barriers and entry points, because I think as a government, one is always looking at what are the barriers and entry points. So what do we need now? The first thing we need is an honest accounting. It's data. Where does the harm originate, sector by sector? You know, whether we're talking about air pollution or about other environmental risks. And secondly, we need a mechanism, a standing mechanism where finance and development ministers and personnel can sit side by side with health and environment, because finance and planning, ultimately, they are the ministries, you know, who can actually bring everyone else together. And so we can also, I would love to advocate for a regional coalition of environment, health, and finance and planning ministers who can discuss these issues so that the allocations that are made by finance and planning are in line with the actual impacts on human health. What are the barriers? I think the first barriers is the silos. I think all of us know that everyone recognizes that climate and health are converging, and yet we're not able to act fast enough. That convergence is not there because it becomes a different ministry's mandate. And very often the health ministers I speak to say that, yes, we bear the brunt of climate, but we're not in the driving seat to drive the action. That sits in other ministries. So, for example, you know, it would be sitting in the road transport ministry, or it would be sitting with the local city governments if we're talking about addressing waste pollution, with transport if we want to move to cleaner fuels. We're still in this region, a lot of women are still using biomass for fuel, and this is not only creating air pollution, but it's obviously impacting their health and their children's health very badly. So I think the first thing is creating a mechanism and a platform for these interconnected ministries and departments to sit at the same table and discuss these issues. The second barrier is what gets measured. So if we don't measure it, we don't know what situation we are in it. And many national governments are still focusing on measuring PM10 as a measure of air pollution. But we know that PM2.5, the fine particles, are the ones that actually get into the lungs, through the lungs, into the bloodstream, and impacting all our organs. And these are actually under measured, and the other pollutants are also not. So one could make a case, rather than measuring air quality alone through an air quality index, to measure an air quality health index, which has an integrated approach at looking at all the different mix of pollutants in the air, looking at the health impacts, which are now being better documented, and therefore being able to take action to actually prevent those health impacts, rather than wait for the PM, to reach a certain level before you introduce certain. So I think the WHO is also moving in this direction of introducing an air quality health index, which we can use to better connect the two. So I think that's the second barrier, is what do you measure, how do you measure, and then you can act on it. The third barrier is a workforce. Recent survey done across 10 Asian countries by ESCAP showed that the biggest barrier is actually workforce capacity. Whether you look at heat impacts or whether you look at air pollution, our workforce, our health workforce, is not trained to look at these causative factors and document them in the record. So tomorrow, if any of us want to see how many deaths resulted as a result of air pollution or a result of heat, we will not have good data from our own country records. And that's because we have to put in place those systems to actually say that, the underlying cause of death was air pollution or it was heat. Ultimately, it may have resulted in a heart attack or in a cardiorespiratory failure. So this is where we need more regional cooperation as well, because for this region, we could have a competency framework and training modules on, say, heat and health or other climate and health issues, so that every health ministry does not have to create and duplicate. And the fourth barrier is sequencing fatigue. We've been hearing about all the different COPs that are going to take place, the SDGs, the biodiversity COP, the climate COP, the desertification COP. So we have hundreds of indicators that countries are needing to report, and now we come here and say, let's add health to this as well, and there's going to be some pushback here. So I think that I would recommend that we bring health as a connective tissue that actually crosses all of these indicators, whether it's biodiversity loss, whether it's pollution, desertification, or heat. They all ultimately have an impact on health. And therefore, there is no need to bring health as another vertical. It's actually cross-cutting, but we just need to make those connections. And finally, like, what are the entry points, that we have? So I think there are 3 concrete ones. The first is, let's put a number on what inaction is already costing using the data that we have. And there have been many calculations. If you look at the Lancet countdown on health, for example, you will know that 640 billion hours are lost worldwide and over $1 trillion of lost productivity just because of dangerous heat. And many countries are beginning to do these calculations. In India, for example, we know that about at least 3% of GDP is lost because of the economic impacts of air pollution. So there are already formula, there are already methodologies that have been published. So for every country, we can actually calculate the impacts of inaction. Secondly, using the next budget really as a mirror and not as a wish list. So whether we're looking at every ministry tagging what they're already doing that contributes towards health and climate action. For example, clean cooking subsidies, urban greening, heat shelters, respiratory disease treatment costs. If we consolidate all these expenditures and show it to cabinet, then we will see that amount we're actually spending on improving this actually becomes better. And then we have an opportunity, thirdly, in the National Adaptation Plan and the nationally determined contributions. And if we don't have health-centered commitments in this cycle, we're going to miss it for the next several years. So let's put those health commitments into the national adaptation plans. And then, of course, we have finally the regional cooperation that I already mentioned. We now have this report, the Asia-Pacific Synergies report that we just saw. And what we can do with that is come up with shared technical standards, for example, for air quality monitoring for the region, a shared adaptable curriculum for frontline health workers on climate-related illnesses so that no country has to build that training program from start. And then finally, a platform at the country level, but also at the regional level, where finance, planning, environment, and health experts, ministers, or senior officials can actually sit together and compare notes on exactly how they have worked within their own governments and how they were able to persuade their own finance ministries to make those investments that we so urgently need. So I think the Synergy report, with all of the case studies in it, gives this region the evidence base that it needs, but what it cannot give us is the political decision-making and the political will to act on the Synergies report, and that's where I think all of us come in, all of you come in as well, and together I'm sure we can get that sustained political commitment to actually focus on synergies, and we will start seeing multiple benefits way beyond the 1 or 2 that we are currently measuring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Soumya, for highlighting health as a key driver. And I think that, and the important role of regional cooperation. And it strikes me that, as you've mentioned, health really is at the core. I mean, this is where you see the duality of adaptation and mitigation coming together, right? Quite often those are sort of, unfortunately, too much seen in different spheres, but that it comes right as a confluence of the two. So very powerful. Thank you for that, Bahat Dhanyavad. And it's now my honor and my pleasure to turn to Professor Takuchi. ESCAP, yokoso. Welcome, sir. Realizing the full potential of synergistic approaches obviously requires systems, enabling systems that support that integrated implementation. So we would very much profit from your view, your opinion. Again, what do you see as the main barriers, the challenges, and how can a science policy interface help overcome those? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for your kind introduction. It is a great honor to be a part of this important roundtable at CED9. Before getting into the main points, let me first provide brief context. As Lawrence already explained, the Asia-Pacific Synergy Report was officially launched during the 7th Global Conference on Climate and SDG Synergies, which concluded yesterday. This milestone regional initiative strongly aligns with the momentum led by the Global Expert Group on Climate and SDG Synergies. As a member of this global group, I'm delighted to introduce this new report. It stands as a dedicated regional response that complements the global movement with context-specific and actionable insights for Asia and the Pacific. To reflect the diverse expertise of the region, the creation of this report was guided by 4 colleagues, including myself, Somia over here, Bernardia from UCLG ASPAC, see somewhere here, and Marjun from IPE China. These 4 colleagues are members of the Global Expert Group representing this region. This global report was initiated by the UN DESA in New York. Through their leadership, more than 50 regional experts contributed to this single document. They successfully embedded a wide range of disciplines into a report. Deepest gratitude is extended to the lead agencies, ESCAP, UNEP, and ADB for their outstanding partnership. And also the special thanks are also given to the Ministry of the Environment of Japan for its generous financial support. Turning to the question regarding key challenges, the separation of the institutional effort remains the most critical barrier, as already explained by the Somia. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and economic development are frequently treated as isolated issues. Fragmented approaches mean that governments, financial institutions, and scientists operate in their own silos. This makes integrated implementation very difficult on the ground. Consequently, the region is off track. It requires an estimated 32 additional years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals if we take a business-as-usual model. A strong science policy interface overcomes these systemic challenges in these practical ways. First, for diagnosis, data-driven analysis can provide powerful clarity. As examples of available tools, advanced digital mapping platforms can track ecological risks across global supply chains. This approach helps both financial institutions and corporations avoid unintended negative impacts on biodiversity. The second, for design, integrating dynamic simulation models is highly effective. Options such as National ISDG platform or SDG interlinkage tools can be utilized. Our IGES already developed our own SDGs interlinkage tools, and you can visit our homepage to know more about this. By applying these types of models, policymakers can forecast the long-term socioeconomic returns of green infrastructure before capital is deployed. The third, for delivery, the interface turns science into a tool for multi-stakeholder co-creation. As prime example is the use of citizen science initiatives for official SDG reporting. Ultimately, the question is not whether the region aspires to transformation. The real question is whether planning, investment, institutions, data, and implementation can operate as one interconnected system. This science policy interface be utilized effectively. We must transform these scientific findings into the next 4-year regional program of action under ESCAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Takuchi, and certainly very powerful words, especially at a moment in time when in the world we see so many attempting to dilute science. And so really the science policy intersection is critically important. Arigato gozaimasu. Dear colleagues, it's now my honor to turn to ADB, to Mr. Zhukov, welcoming you, sir, Salamat Sis Derme. And I wish you could share with us your views on the synergistic approaches that require, of course, coming from an MDB, that require various financing mechanisms. Clearly, financing is one of the great challenges, not the only one by any means, but one of the great challenges. So what sort of mechanisms could we help to unleash these synergistic outcomes? And is there a role for regulatory requirements as well? How would you see ADB, for example, and regional collaboration working in that line? Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be in this panel and to help launch and inform about this Asia-Pacific Synergy report, to which ADB was very happy to contribute to. So our environmental action plan, which covers the next 5 years between 2026 and 2030, and our operations already seek to incorporate this synergetic approach in our actions and operations, including through the partnership with the Japan's Ministry of Environment, where we position synergy as a guiding principle of our regional collaboration and investments. So we believe in ADB that synergetic approach is ultimately about getting more from the same development dollar. It is about designing sometimes a single investment to deliver simultaneously for climate, nature, health, and development. So there are a number of financial instruments that already exist, and they're uniquely designed around shared outcomes rather than traditional siloed sectors. I'll just give a couple of examples which have worked for us. First, blended finance platforms, which can pool concessional and commercial capital behind comprehensive programs rather than investing just in individual projects. One example I can give is ADB's ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility, or ACGF, which aggregates resources across partners to support multi-sector initiatives. And one example of specific projects which happened just before this platform exists is our project in Cambodia for sustainable coastal and marine fisheries project. This $100 million investment works simultaneously to boost fisheries, halt mangrove loss, and enhance coastal climate resilience and secure communities' livelihoods. This is one investment which delivers multiple outcomes. So another example of blended finance would be a platform that promotes integrated and synergetic approach in ADB, what we call Nature Solutions Finance Hub. This is a partnership platform which aims to leverage about $5 billion for nature by 2030. Second instrument that I would like to highlight, Mr. Chairman, is what we call outcome-linked instruments, like sustainability-linked bonds, debt for nature swaps, and nature credits that can structure financial returns against multiple indicators at once. And one specific example here is in 2024, ADB issued the first ever biodiversity and nature bond. So this $100 million bond was invested by the Japanese insurance company, and the proceeds were used to fund several biodiversity projects in the region. However, Mr. Chair, I would like to note that in our view, any specific financing instruments can only function where appropriate policy and governance architecture exists. And here, I think the report suggests 3 essential policy shifts with which we fully agreed. 2 previous speakers talked about fragmentation in the government, and we agree that's the issue. So the first actions need aligning budgets and planning. So stronger alignments between the nationally development contributions, nationally determined contributions, national biodiversity strategy and action plans, and national development budgets is essential so the single investment can draw on multiple funding streams. MDBs, including us and ADB, we have an instrument which is called policy-based lending, which can help governments to achieve this. Second, also the speakers before me mentioned that, it's developing robust data systems. So investors pay for outcomes which they can verify, including co-benefits and trade-offs across sectors. So one example of our work here is our work with the Stanford University in People's Republic of China, where we're working to introduce nature capital accounting and valuation methodologies across 150 counties. And the third, the need to reform subsidies and institutional governance. Redirecting harmful subsidies to nature and climate could unlock synergetic finance. We could also strengthen governance at subnational level. Our work on so-called sponge cities demonstrated this by integrating green infrastructure into urban flooding to tackle flooding, heat stress, biodiversity loss, and public health in one goal, altogether in an integrated manner. Just to conclude, Mr. Chair, there are various existing financial mechanisms to scale the investment that we need to implement integrated and synergetic approaches to address the triple planetary crisis. However, as this new report clearly shows, we also need to enhance the enabling environment, budget alignment, data system, and governance to ensure that the same dollar works across climate, nature, and development goals at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhukov, and absolutely, as you've noted, I mean, we talk about a $4 trillion a year SDG gap, for example, but we know that, global capital markets, depending on your metric, are, 130 trillion or greater. So it's about how to unlock that finance. Finance is there, but how to unlock that, bring the partnerships, and I think as well the term I always am fascinated by is patient capital, how to bring capital in that can have a longer time horizon as well. So thank you very much, sir, for your views, and again to ADB for collaborating, being a partner in bringing this important report to all of us. I now, with pleasure, turn to my UN colleague, Mr. Violetti from UNFCCC. Climate action has obviously become an imperative for the whole world, no doubt about it. The Asia and Pacific region in particular, being particularly exposed, let's say. How would you see, what are the requirements that we need as a region, as countries of the region, as communities of the region, to come together to realize these synergies and to achieve the UNFCCC goals? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, also very pleased to join this panel and this important discussion on synergies. I mean, the question you raised really goes to the heart of the Paris Agreement, with the need to align climate ambition and development needs and not treat them as competing pressures, and specifically for the region, which is valid for most of the world. This is not a theoretical exercise. If we think that the region itself will drive most of the global energy demand growth over the next 2 decades, and think about infrastructure, energy, and urban choices that are made today, will lock the decarbonization pathway for decades. So there is no real scenario in which we address climate change and development separately. We have seen good progress coming in the latest generation of NDC's submissions. So we have seen, efforts in increasing ambition, but of course, ambition on paper requires an institutional architecture that on the ground translate this ambition, emission reduction mainly, but also adaptation measures and all the other action that are part of the target with development gains. So what we are really looking at is, progress, yes, but the speed and scale is definitely in a gap situation at the moment. So we talk about this as a risk for a parallel track problem. So we have, and that's been said already by previous speakers, but we have, imagine a situation, we have an NDC target developed in a climate ministry. We have a national energy plan in the energy ministry, an industrialization strategy in a trade. So each of them can be ambitious, but not speaking to one another. So we can see that individually credible targets, if they are misaligned across sector, will not deliver synergy. So this is not something that is inevitable. Actually, the synergies do materialize on the ground at the level of implementation. But if we want to do that, we really need to align NDC implementation in sectoral pathways that drive actual investment. And if we have, again, going back to an example of a renewable energy target, has to be backed by a grid planning, a feed-in tariff design, tender projects that are bankable. So the same target standing alone is not really meaningful, but if this is connected as a whole sector, in this case, approach is the one that we can make the difference. So we are looking at, from our point of view, three main shifts in the area of coherence. One, the whole of government. So this is already happening in the last generation of NDC. Is very obvious. Whole of government and whole of economy. But we need this institutionalized at the level of, it can be interministerial NDC coordination mechanism at the center of the government, which helps to align all the mandates of different ministries alongside in shared implementation pathway. So not only residing in one ministry. Then the whole economy, which was a requirement for the latest set of NDC, and having, for example, the private sector as a delivery partner and not looked at as a donor. So policy predictability, stable carbon pricing, all these demand signals for low carbon products and help in de-risking investment is really what drives private capital in climate aligned sectors. And lastly, whole of society. So subnational governments, local communities, civil society are implementation actors, not just consultees. City-level decision on transport, building, land use are the ones that are directly shaping NDC achievement. And cities in this region are growing faster than anywhere else on Earth. So you see the importance of the connection between the different levels of society. So within the Paris Agreement, there is a very clear tool that helps that, which is the enhanced transparency framework. Parties to the Paris Agreement, most of them already have submitted their first biennial transparency reports as a mandatory exercise under the Paris Agreement. And this tool is not it goes far beyond compliance reporting. It's really tracking sectoral policy implementation against NDCs. Countries undergo the technical expert review of these, so it creates a wealth of information that is available for everyone, and evidence-based that really makes confidence. And actually, by the end of this year, by the end of December, already the second round of biennial transparency reports is due to be submitted. So it's a continuous cycle, which is the pillar of the Paris Agreement, which is delivering. It's actually very effective. Last word on our side on the climate change secretariat. In addition, of course, to support all these elements of the Paris Agreement that I mentioned, and the Cs and the NAPs and the biennial transparency reports, we do have also a very small presence here in the region with the Regional Collaboration Center, working alongside with IGES, and we are always grateful for this partnership for so-called RCC Asian Pacific, based here in Bangkok, and we are providing support to parties and member states on a variety of matters, and we are also launching an initiative called ACT Initiative, which is working with countries really to look at the bottlenecks and fragmentation that are present, and looking at how we can provide support as well, bring the support of others together with us. So we do see that there is an existing framework which will help in the synergies approach, which is essentially needed at a time of challenges and resource constraints. And so there is region in particular, climate action in the Asia Pacific should not be a constraint on development at all, but actually implemented with integration and ambition. It is, in our view, the most credible development strategy for the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Violetti. Grazie. You've really, I think, highlighted clearly why we need these synergies, bringing together climate action and other imperatives as well. And I think that I'm sure I'm not the only one that has always felt that the Paris Agreement, UNFCCC, is one of the most inspiring moments of really of human history, of multilateralism, of people coming together, collective solutions for common challenges, but of course facing some of the greatest challenges as well. And you can't plan for things like AI revolutions driving data centers, and suddenly this unbelievably sharp rise in energy consumption that nobody imagined 3 years ago, something like that. So really kudos to you and the colleagues for that, for sticking with it. So it is now my great honor to turn to the Commissioner of Coimbatore. Vanakkam, welcome. Mr. Teja, cities are not, and I have to say I absolutely love Coimbatore. I've had the pleasure of being there previously. Cities are obviously on the front line of this interconnected crises, and also the frontline delivery systems for all of these aspects, also health and many others. So what strategies are you deploying at the city level really to build these synergies, cross-silo for local climate resilience?
Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished panelists and participants. It's an honor to participate in this discussion and to share Coimbatore's experience in advancing integrated urban action plan. Cities today are facing multiple interconnected crises. Climate change is intensifying extreme heat, flooding, water scarcity, and biodiversity loss, while rapid urbanization continues to increase pressure on infrastructure, natural resources, and public services. These challenges are no longer separate issues. They interact with one another and directly affect people's health, livelihoods, and economic opportunities. At the same time, cities are uniquely positioned to deliver solutions. Local governments are responsible for many of the sectors that determine climate outcomes, including land use planning, water management, mobility, waste management, green spaces, and urban infrastructure. This makes cities essential partners in implementing national climate commitments and achieving the sustainable development goals. To go specific to describe about the strategy adopted by Coimbatore, one of the first strategies we adopted is evidence-based planning. Under the Urban Act program, Coimbatore carried out citywide climate risk and vulnerability assessments, greenhouse gas emission analysis, and spatial mapping. These studies identified priority sectors such as urban green cover, sustainable urban logistics, water management, and nature-based solutions. Rather than planning projects independently, investment priorities are now based on climate evidence and future risk. Climate action must begin with understanding local risks. Through climate risk assessments, GIS-based mapping, and vulnerability analysis, Coimbatore identifies areas most exposed to flooding, extreme heat, water stress, and environmental degradation. These assessments help prioritize investments where they can have the greatest impact. Evidence-based planning has also strengthened decision-making across departments. Instead of responding to problems after they occur, the city increasingly focuses on prevention and long-term resilience. The second strategy that I wanted to discuss is about investing in blue-green infrastructure. Coimbatore has initiated the restoration of 8 urban lakes, which were created several centuries back, and now we are focusing on restoration, along with improved stormwater drainage, promoting rainwater harvesting, and we have also introduced the concept of sponge parks. These interventions reduce urban flooding during heavy rainfall, recharge groundwater, improve biodiversity, lower urban temperatures, and create public recreational spaces. Instead of serving a single purpose, these projects simultaneously strengthen climate adaptation, climate mitigation, and ecosystem restoration. Another example is increasing the urban green cover. The city is currently developing Miyawaki urban forests, restoring open space reserved lands, and expanding green corridors. These initiatives help reduce the urban heat island effect, improve air quality, capture carbon, and provide healthier neighborhoods while enhancing biodiversity. Another strategy is integrating climate considerations into urban governance. Governance has also been critical. Coimbatore established a city climate action cell to improve coordination across departments responsible for planning, engineering, transport, water, environment, and finance, which otherwise work in silos. The city also works closely with academic institutions, civil society organizations, and development partners to ensure climate considerations are integrated into municipal decision making. Additionally, we have also focused on community participation and awareness. Climate resilience cannot be achieved by governments alone. Communities are central partners in conserving water, protecting green spaces, reducing waste, and responding to climate risks. Public participation also increases accountability and ensures that climate solutions reflect local priorities. Many local officials and stakeholders remain unfamiliar with how local development decisions contribute to national climate commitments. Strengthening awareness helps align municipal investments with national priorities while encouraging broader participation in the climate action as well. We also have focused on building local capacity. Many cities have ambitious climate goals but face limited technical expertise and financial resources. Coimbatore has benefited from partnerships that strengthen institutional capacity, improve technical knowledge, and we've introduced innovative planning tools. Capacity development enables municipal staff to prepare stronger projects, monitor implementation, and access climate finance. A big role is played by the international cooperation as well. Technical assistance, knowledge exchange, and peer learning allow cities to benefit from global experience while adapting solutions to local conditions. Networks that connect cities accelerate innovation and reduce the cost of learning. Looking ahead, several priorities will help cities accelerate integrated climate action. First, climate resilience should become a core element of urban planning rather than a standalone environmental program. Second, local governments need stronger institutional capacity and technical support to prepare and implement climate projects. Third, access to climate finance must become easier and more responsive to municipal needs. In conclusion, Coimbatore's journey shows that climate action is most effective when it is integrated, evidence-based, participatory, and aligned across all levels of government. Cities are not only on the front line of climate impacts, they are also the front line of climate solutions. By empowering cities with knowledge, partnerships, finance, and governance systems they need, we can accelerate implementation of national climate commitments while improving the everyday lives of urban residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Teja, for highlighting the important role of cities and local governments and sharing experience, in particular from Coimbatore, Nandri. And just to say that, I remember formerly when he was the Minister of Urban Affairs, Housing and Urban Affairs, Hardeep Puri, a friend of mine used to always say that, India's, 2/3 of India's built environment, urbanization, is yet to come. So talking about, as was mentioned, I think Professor Takuchi, you said that this region has an unbelievable amount of urbanization yet to come. And so vitally important that we put these issues at the core of that planned development and get it right up front. Absolutely. So thank you very much. And I would also, note on the urban lakes, I just happen to benefit as a new resident of Bangkok, living just overlooking Benchakiti Park, which is an excellent example of kind of taking, old factory and turning it into exactly that, an urban cool spot and sponge element as well. So really a great example. Thank you. Okay, dear colleagues, absolutely last but not least among the initial panelists here, it's my great honor to welcome Ms. An from City Developments Limited. And Ms. An, we're now very well into the issue of the role of cities and as key platforms for operationalizing synergies. What would your lessons, your insights be in terms of how can we ensure that development is low carbon, is resilient, sustainable, and inclusive from your perspectives? Please.
Thank you for the kind introduction. It is indeed my honors to be sharing the business case of City Developments Limited, or CDL for short. Well, confronting the climate emergency and planetary degradation demands immediate, systemic, and also synergistic action across sectors and countries. The built environment accounts for almost 40% of global greenhouse gas emission and 50% of natural extraction. So as a real estate company headquartered in Singapore with global presence spanning 29 countries and regions, CDL has already embraced sustainability into our business and operations, founded on our corporate ethos of conserving as we construct since 1995, 31 years ago. I'm delighted to share some of our real-world initiatives and examples that are aligned with the 5 pillars of the APAC Green Deal for Business, launched by the ESPN, that I'm part of it, very proud of it. And I took the liberty to synergize the 5 pillars with CDL's own 5C framework to green the built environment. The first C is carbon zero economy. In an era of climate emergency, developer must set ambitious net zero targets for both operational and embodied carbon to accelerate actions. Also, involving the whole life cycle and our value chain of stakeholders. In 2018, an example is we became the first Singapore company to set carbon reduction targets aligned with Science-Based Target Initiative, or SBTi framework. Our current SBTi aligned target is to reduce Scope 1 and 2 emissions intensity by 63% per square meter leased area by 2030 versus baseline 2016. The latest reported reduction in our financial year 2025, we have achieved 31% reduction. And in 2021, CDL became the first real estate companies in Southeast Asia to pledge our support of the World Green Building Council Net Zero Carbon Building Commitment. Tough, challenging target, but that is how we can drive action. And in 2024, we completed an internal carbon pricing pilot at our own flagship headquarters, Republic Plaza, to assess mitigation costs as well as to inform a carbon price pathway towards net zero. And the second C is circularity. And this is something that we have to look at. The traditional linear take, make, waste model must be replaced with a circular approach in both development and asset management to enhance resource optimization. Over the years, we have actually expanded our target for adoption of circular economy approach across our development, prioritizing recycled materials such as recycled steels and concrete, and promoting innovative low-carbon alternatives to support our transition to net zero. We have actually collaborated with local university on R&D for innovative solutions. And the most exciting recent example is a carbon capture solution. We call it C1010 that turns carbon captured from air into building materials. The solutions has made great progress over the years and is now ready to scale up and go to market. And as a landlord, CDL also engaged hundreds of our tenants to step up on circularity practices through our Green Tenant Landlord Partnership Program. So the third C is about capital mobilization. There are technologies and solutions ready, but they are not free, they are not cheap. So transitioning the built environment requires massive capital injection. Attracting sustainable finance requires very strict alignment with internationally recognized ESG framework to assure investors and bankers, confidence. In 2017, CDL actually issued a very first corporate green bond in Singapore. And since then, we have adopted various vehicles of sustainable finance, including the sustainability-linked loan, which are target-driven and also subject to annual performance review. And today, CDL has already secured more than $11.3 billion of sustainable finance, helping us to accelerate action to green our projects and practices as well. And this includes two latest sustainability-linked loans amounting to $700 million that were packed to target set under our TNFD framework, or as well as the nature-based solution. TNFD is the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure. The fourth C is climate resilient infrastructure and technologies. Risk mitigation is a given. Adaptation is critical to move the needle. Effective decarbonization relies on very smart green building technology, predictive automation, as well as AI to actively manage operational resource efficiency. And we adopted real-time data platform, to assess material dependency and environmental risk metrics prior to as well as during construction. Similarly, for building management, digital tools have been widely deployed to enable facility managers to run predictive models on water scarcity, building heat exposure, as well as microclimatic variation. So last but not least, the last C is climate nature-based solutions. And to work towards decarbonization, developers and land managers must progress past the engineering-centric system by incorporating innovative biophilic as well as regenerative intervention that leverage nature and also natural ecosystems to mitigate localized climate impacts. Singapore is warming up twice as fast as the global average. So we need to tackle the urban heat island effect very effectively and restore lost urban biodiversity. So CDL was actually the first Southeast Asian companies to adopt the TNFD disclosure framework, and by disclosing, we also were inspired to actually adopt. Just now, Mr. Tavi mentioned about Miyawaki Forest, and in fact, in March 2024, we actually built our first CDL microforest and in front of our mixed development and a mall. It is actually a 2,800 square feet regenerative tropical microforest. We created it in collaboration with the public sector, National Park Board, and also a local university, NUS, as a high-density urban living lab. And after 1 year's research using acoustic sensors, the finding was very, very encouraging. The microforest is able to lower temperature by up to 5 degrees C inside the forest and also reduce up to 4 degrees C in the surrounding area. So biodiversity boost achieved 70% higher species richness than the neighboring grass patches. So now what we are looking at in closing, that the real world performance in our humble journey at CDL demonstrates that the environmental stewardship and fiduciary responsibility are mutually reinforcing. Robust climate integration does not diminish profits, and in fact, it lowers operational costs, mitigate physical risks, and unlock access to competitive global green capital. The dynamic APAC market is the epicenter of climate sustainability investment and the fast also urbanization. And we are seeing potentials of trillions of dollars investing into financing infrastructure, technologies, and industries that are powering the next generation of sustainable growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. An, for that, and very, very inspiring progress to hear about. And thank you also for mentioning the ESPN, ESCAP Sustainable Business Network. Because, at the end of the day, it must be the private sector that is going to do actually the heaviest lifting in terms of, building the resilient infrastructure, inclusive infrastructure, providing the green jobs. All of these different aspects absolutely requires the private sector heavy lifting. So thank you very much for that. Dear colleagues, I apologize. We are running a bit tight of time here, but we do have, I certainly would not allow at least 1 or 2 questions if there are any, pardon the pun, burning questions in the audience. Anybody would like to ask anything to the panelists, and if not, I could ask, we could, if any of the panelists would like to have any final thoughts, anything you feel that has been missed, left on the table, and if not,
If I can just make one point.
Please, Dr. Suman, yes.
So I think it was really good to hear from ADB about China doing the natural capital accounting, down at the provincial level. And I think that this is something which I think we're often missing because if we have no sight on the value of the ecosystem services, then it is very difficult to make decisions about whether to keep it or to cut it down if it's a forest or something for some other need, for either agriculture or for development, for buildings and so on. So I think in addition to the GDP that we all look at all the time, I think the natural capital accounting, and if possible to add to that also the human and social capital. And I think city like Coimbatore, we heard from Singapore, from a builder, how they are looking at things. So I think more and more if we need to put a value to some of these things that in the past we may not have measured or taken much notice of, and look at it more holistically and then present the case to the finance ministry for why certain allocations need to be made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and fully agree. As never an economist, but economics background, I always felt the models are actually okay, but we're just not putting in the right values. We need to add those values into the models. I think, Professor, you would like to say something.
Yes, just mentioned by the speaker the importance of urban greening. One important point is that just for climate change mitigation is not the solution. But we need to take the integrated solution while trying to conserve and even enrich the biodiversity of urban rural areas. So this sort of idea could be further developed in particularly Asia and Pacific region. That will be a very important instrument for the synergy approach, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Anybody else from the panel would like final thought, comment? No? Okay. Well, then I think we are actually bang right on time. I would like to, we started with heat Dr. Swaminathan, and I think, you know, I don't know if anybody is watching the World Cup these days, but apparently one of the great controversies is now the water breaks, right? Because of this heat issue. This is just absolutely permeating every aspect of society. So on that note, let me thank all of our panelists for really bringing powerful arguments, powerful discussion, and thank again ADB, UNAP, and ESCAP colleagues for the report, and looking forward to the collaboration, and all of you for being with us here in the room today. Thank you. And do we take a quick photo? Could we have a, just with the panelists, please?
Thank you very much to our panelists for the insightful statements. And thank you, Deputy Executive Secretary for ESCAP, for your able moderation. No one is watching the soccer in this room. What are you talking about? Yes.
Especially Lorenzo.
On silent, yes. Thank you. Before I open the floor for statements under Agenda Item 3, we have statements left over from Agenda Item 2 this morning. I now give the floor to the delegate from France, followed by the delegate from India and Germany. Delegate from France, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Mesdames et Messieurs, signé il y a un peu plus de 10 ans, l'accord de Paris est devenu la boussole de l'action climatique, ce qui a été rappelé par l'avis de la Cour internationale de justice en juillet 2025. Depuis sa signature, les énergies renouvelables se sont développées de façon exponentielle et la transition énergétique est désormais inarrêtable. Cependant, nous n'allons pas assez vite. Les engagements déposés par les pays, les contributions déterminées au niveau national sont loin d'être suffisants pour nous replacer sur une trajectoire à 1,5 degré. La France est pleinement impliquée pour mettre en œuvre les objectifs de l'accord de Paris. Elle a récemment publié sa feuille de route pour accélérer sa sortie des énergies fossiles, conformément à l'engagement pris lors de la COP28 et afin de contribuer à la feuille de route que la présidence brésilienne développe en cohérence avec l'engagement pris lors de la COP30. Par ailleurs, la France mène une politique de partenariat ambitieux avec de nombreux pays de l'Asie et du Pacifique. Sur le climat, nous avons signé avec l'Indonésie et le Vietnam des partenariats pour une transition énergétique juste dans le cadre du G7. L'accélération de la sortie du charbon et l'accélération du développement des énergies renouvelables sont au cœur de notre action pour réduire les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Nous coprésidons par ailleurs avec l'Inde l'Alliance solaire internationale visant à favoriser le développement de l'énergie solaire, en particulier dans les pays en développement. Sur la biodiversité, nous avons pris l'engagement de mettre en œuvre le cadre mondial pour la biodiversité et l'un de ses objectifs phares de protection de 30% des terres et 30% des océans d'ici 2030. Pour y parvenir, nous développons des coopérations pour la préservation des réserves vitales de carbone et de biodiversité, notamment avec la Papouasie-Nouvelle-Guinée, la préservation des forêts tropicales, notamment en Asie du Sud-Est, des écosystèmes terrestres et marins comme les mangroves et les coraux, sont autant de moyens de préserver nos conditions d'habitabilité. Partout dans le monde, nous œuvrons à traduire les engagements de l'accord de Paris en projets concrets. La France est ainsi, via le groupe AFD, l'un des principaux contributeurs à la finance climat à destination des pays en développement, avec 7,2 milliards d'euros en 2024, dont 3 milliards pour l'adaptation. Cette diplomatie des partenariats et des coalitions défie les logiques de bloc et défend un multilatéralisme constructif. Elle dépasse les clivages et dans l'esprit du pacte pour la prospérité, les peuples et la planète 4P, qui englobe 73 pays de tous les continents, représentant tous les niveaux de revenus, porte une conviction simple: aucun pays ne devrait avoir à choisir entre la lutte contre la pauvreté et la lutte contre le changement climatique. Dans le cadre du G7 développement, la France a œuvré à renforcer la résilience des pays vulnérables face aux catastrophes naturelles, dont climatiques. La France a ainsi annoncé une contribution de l'ordre de 3 millions d'euros pour 2026 en faveur de l'initiative CRUISE, en charge de déployer des systèmes d'alerte précoce dans les pays en développement, notamment dans les pays d'Asie et du Pacifique. La France est par ailleurs pleinement mobilisée dans le Pacifique, notamment par l'intermédiaire de l'AFD. La France a lancé en 2020 l'initiative Kiwa avec l'Union européenne, le Canada, l'Australie et la Nouvelle-Zélande. Valorisé à 80 millions d'euros, ce fonds multibailleur vise à renforcer la résilience des écosystèmes, des économies et des communautés des États et territoires insulaires du Pacifique face aux effets du changement climatique, en finançant des projets centrés sur les solutions fondées sur la nature. L'AFD soutient également le projet SWAP 2, visant à promouvoir une gestion responsable et durable des déchets, ainsi que l'initiative Océan, visant à protéger la biodiversité marine et côtière des États insulaires du Pacifique. Ces projets sont tous deux mis en œuvre par le Programme régional océanien de l'environnement. La troisième conférence des Nations Unies sur l'océan, organisée à Nice l'année dernière, a donné une impulsion déterminante pour l'entrée en vigueur de l'accord sur la biodiversité en haute mer, dit BBNJ, ou l'accord du Cap au sein de l'Organisation maritime internationale. La première COP de l'accord BBNJ aura lieu en janvier 2027 à New York. Nous encourageons tous les pays qui ne l'ont pas encore fait à ratifier l'accord avant la COP 1. La région Asie-Pacifique est au cœur des problématiques qui touchent l'océan, telles que le réchauffement des eaux, l'élévation du niveau de la mer, la pollution ou encore la surpêche. La France se mobilise fortement pour lutter contre ces menaces et notamment contre celles qui pèsent sur les écosystèmes les plus fragiles comme les récifs coralliens. La France a ainsi fait partie des membres fondateurs du Fonds mondial sur les récifs coralliens et y a contribué à hauteur de 4,8 millions d'euros depuis sa création. En cette année clé pour le multilatéralisme de l'eau, nous devons promouvoir une ambition élevée. La France est particulièrement mobilisée en vue de la conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau de décembre, où elle coprésidera avec l'Afrique du Sud le dialogue interactif dédié aux investissements pour l'eau. Je vous remercie.
Merci, France. My apologies. That was Mr. Mark Alexandra Panteras, First Secretary and Deputy Permanent Representative to ESCAP, Embassy of France to Thailand. And I do reiterate his call, as France is the owner of the largest EEZ in the world. And from a large ocean state, please, countries, do consider ratifying BBNJ in your own countries. We'll move on now to our delegate from India, Ms. Jagpreet Kaur, First Secretary and alternate permanent representative of India to ESCAP, to deliver her statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For India, environment and development are not separate agendas. They are central to our national policy. India seeks to balance economic growth with environmental stewardship, keeping people's needs at the center. The impacts of climate change are increasingly evident across regions and sectors. India has therefore adopted a calibrated approach that builds climate resilience, strengthens biodiversity conservation, and advances sustainable growth in a balanced manner. Madam Chair, our nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, serve as a broad development roadmap. They integrate climate targets with national priorities, including energy security and disaster resilience. We achieved our NDC target of 50% non-fossil installed electricity capacity in June 2025 itself. This was 5 years ahead of schedule. India now ranks third globally in renewable energy capacity, having crossed 250 gigawatts. Our national green hydrogen mission targets 5 million metric tons of annual green hydrogen production by 2030. As we pursue our own path, we stand firmly for climate justice, equity, and sustainable development for the Global South. Through the International Solar Alliance, the LIFE movement, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and the Global Biofuels Alliance, India strives to make clean technology accessible to all developing countries. Small island developing states are particularly vulnerable to climate change. India supports their climate action through targeted financial support and technical cooperation. India has committed resources for SIDS through the India-UN Development Partnership Fund and other mechanisms. These funds support early warning weather systems, water management, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Through the International Solar Alliance dedicated SIDS platform, India accelerates clean energy access, helping SIDS deploy solar projects. India anchors the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Our focus includes retrofitting and building extreme weather-resistant structures across island nations. India also drives targeted initiatives through the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation, or FIPIC, IORA, and the Sagar policy, that is security and growth for all, in the region to deliver climate support. Madam Chair, mitigation efforts remain crucial, but India recognizes the need for more resolute action on adaptation and on closing the global financing gap. Less than 10% of global climate finance flows to adaptation. Developing countries on the climate frontline urgently need scaled-up support. Developed countries and multilateral institutions must substantially enhance adaptation finance delivery. Debt instruments dominate adaptation finance today. This raises serious concerns about affordability for LDCs and SIDS, the countries that are most vulnerable and least equipped to address climate impacts. Without adequate, timely, and predictable financing in the form of grants and concessional resources, developing countries cannot sustain the action that is needed. Madam Chair, India remains a steadfast partner of ESCAP. We support platforms such as the Regional Action Programme on Air Pollution and the ESCAP Trust Fund for Tsunami, Disaster and Climate Preparedness to deepen collaboration across Asia and the Pacific. As a firm believer in climate action, India stands ready to strengthen partnerships. We do so in line with the principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities. Our goal is a transition to a low-emission future that is just, equitable, resilient, and leaves no one behind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank Ms. Kaur from India for her statement. And now invite Ms. Abba Shaw. My apologies. I now invite the representative from speaking for Germany, followed by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, and right after that, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of Ms. Ebba Scholl, Deputy Head of Mission, German Embassy Bangkok, following statement. Germany would like to thank ESCAP and the government of Thailand for convening this important session and for their leadership in advancing regional cooperation on environment and sustainable development. Air pollution crosses borders. It has multiple sources. Effective responses, therefore, require cooperation across countries and sectors. Germany welcomes ESCAP's efforts through the Regional Action Programme on Air Pollution wrap-up and its partnership and coordination platform to promote knowledge exchange, capacity development, and collective action across the region. Looking ahead, we see three priorities for strengthening clean air action in the region. First, strengthen air quality monitoring and open data. Second, accelerate solutions with climate co-benefits. Third, promote sustainable agricultural practices and alternatives to open burning. We welcome ESCAP's efforts to advance sustainable crop residue management and practical alternatives to agricultural burning, reducing emissions while supporting farmers' livelihoods, improving human and soil health, and strengthening climate resilience. Germany supports regional cooperation through partnership with ESCAP, ASEAN, national governments, and development partners. Through our development cooperation implemented by GIZ, Germany advances air quality management, climate protection, transboundary haze mitigation, capacity development, and regional knowledge exchange. One concrete example is the Southeast Asia Climate and Clean Air Initiative, SICAI, which is funded by Germany and Switzerland. SICAI focuses on SLCP, short-lived climate pollutants, particularly black carbon, working exactly at the intersection between air pollution and climate change. It promotes integrated approaches to climate protection and cleaner air at 3 levels. At regional level, supporting ASEAN cooperation while strengthening knowledge exchange and policy dialogues. At sub-regional level, promoting Mekong sub-regional cooperation through technical collaboration, data sharing, and joint planning. At national level, working with Thailand, Laos, PDR, and Cambodia to implement practical solutions in agriculture, forestry, and waste management. Other examples are the Thai-German Cooperation on Energy, Mobility, and Climate, TGC-EMC, as well as the Regional Urban Act program. These initiatives demonstrate Germany's commitment to supporting policy cooperation and practical solutions for cleaner air, climate mitigation, and sustainable development. We believe effective clean air action requires cooperation from local to regional levels. Through these initiatives, Germany remains committed to supporting ASEAN, the Mekong sub-region, and partner countries in advancing science-based solutions for cleaner air and healthier communities. In closing, clean air is an investment in human health, sustainable development, and economic prosperity. Germany looks forward to continuing its cooperation with ESCAP, ASEAN, government, development partners, academia, civil society, and the private sector to advance cleaner air across Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you to our representative from GIZ on behalf of Germany. I now call on Dr. Pema Gyamtshaw, Director General for the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, to deliver the intervention.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I speak on behalf of the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD, an intergovernmental knowledge and research center working for the mountains and peoples of the Hindu Kush Himalaya, serving its 8 regional member countries. As we discuss the future of sustainable development in the Asia-Pacific region, I wish to highlight a reality that can no longer remain at the margins of our conversations. The future of our region is inseparable from the future of our mountains. The Asia-Pacific region, The Asia-Pacific region stands at the front line of the climate crisis. Across our mountains, coastlines, forests, and drylands, climate impacts are intensifying and becoming increasingly interconnected. Yet nowhere are these changes more vulnerable, more visible than the mountains, where glaciers are melting rapidly, biodiversity is declining, and disasters are becoming more frequent and severe. The Hindu Kush Himalayas, often called the world's 3rd pole, is one of the most fragile yet vital mountain ecosystems on Earth. It provides fresh waters and essential ecosystem services to nearly 2 billion people, making it one of the world's most critical water sources. Yet today, it is under unprecedented stress. What happens in the mountains does not stay in the mountains. The consequences extend beyond borders, sectors, and economy. Recent scientific assessment underscore the urgent need for action, because this is, without action, we are going to compromise water, energy, food security, livelihoods, and socio-ecological resilience across the region. Tragically, mountain communities that have contributed least to global emissions are bearing some of the gravest consequences of climate change. No country can address these challenges alone. They require solutions that are regional in scope and cooperative in nature. At ESCAP, we have seen how science and evidence-based cooperation can generate political will, bridge boundaries, and deliver practical solutions. From transboundary river basin cooperation and climate services to ecosystem restoration, cryosphere monitoring, disaster risk reduction, and air quality management, regional cooperation remains essential for building resilience at scale. We are encouraged by the growing recognition of mountains in global climate processes. The recent mandated dialogue on mountains and climate change under the UNFCCC and the Glaciers and Mountain Cryosphere Resolution adopted at UNEA 7 signal an important shift in global awareness. But recognition alone will not protect a glacier, restore an ecosystem, or safeguard a vulnerable community. We must now translate political recognition into meaningful investment, stronger policies, enhanced regional cooperation, and tangible support for mountain communities already living with the consequences of a warming world. In this regard, ESCAP has a critical role to play. Its convening power, regional platforms, and commitment to sustainable development provide valuable opportunities to strengthen cooperation on climate adaptation, resilience, water security, and ecosystem stewardship across Asia and the Pacific. ESCAP stands ready to work with ESCAP, member states, UN agencies, and development partners to integrate mountain priorities into regional development agendas and ensure that climate solutions reach the most vulnerable communities. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Elkan Rahimov, Head of Delegation and Representative to ESCAP for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, followed by UNEP and the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multisectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. Mr. Rahimov, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, and I will be speaking on behalf of Mr. Rahimov. Thank you. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies welcome this opportunity to contribute to discussions on strengthening resilience and sustainable development across Asia and the Pacific. Climate and environmental crises are among the greatest challenges facing our region today. Communities are experiencing increasingly frequent and severe climate-related hazards, and the most vulnerable people continue to bear the greatest burden. Among the manifestations of this challenge, extreme heat is emerging as a significant humanitarian health and development risk. Asia and the Pacific accounts for approximately 74% of the global population exposed to the heat waves, and by 2050, an estimated 3.2 billion people could be at risk from extreme heat. Heat threatens health, livelihoods, food security, education, water, and energy systems. It exacerbates existing vulnerabilities and inequalities and undermines sustainable development efforts across all sectors. So the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society works through a network of 38 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies across Asia Pacific, who are auxiliaries to public authorities in the humanitarian field and trusted local actors with a unique ability to support governments in reaching communities before, during, and after disasters. The FRC network is supporting governments in communities through climate adaptation and resilience initiatives, including heat action plans, early warning systems, anticipatory action, and community awareness campaigns. Our experience demonstrates that investing in preparedness and early action saves lives and reduces humanitarian impacts. So today we call on government to take 3 urgent actions. First, recognize that extreme heat as a priority climate, health, and development risk and integrate it into national climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction planning. Second, invest in people-centered early warning systems and anticipatory action that protect before crises occur. Third, increase financing for locally led adaptation and resilience. And to conclude, building a sustainable and resilient future requires urgent and collective action to address the growing impacts of climate and environmental crisis. The risks facing our communities are interconnected and demand integrated, people-centered solutions that protect both people and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for your intervention on behalf of IFRC. I now give the floor to Ms. Deshen Sering, Regional Director for United Nations Environment Program. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. UNEP is very pleased to address this ministerial gathering at the 9th session of the Committee on Environment and Development. On air quality, UNEP and ESCAP continue to support countries to strengthen science-based air quality standards in line with the WHO 2021 guidelines, to expand monitoring and open data, and to exchange good practices across the sub-regional clean air partnerships, including through the Clean Air Week that took place in 2025, the 5th Asia-Pacific Clean Air Partnership Joint Forum, and the Better Air Quality Conference. UNEP with ESCAP and other sister agencies of the UN through the issue-based coalition on raising ambition on climate ambition produced the 5th in our annual series, the 2025 review of climate ambition in Asia-Pacific readiness for NDC implementation. This assessment gives governments across the region a clear assessment of their readiness to deliver the new NDC 3.0 commitments. The IBC also convened with the NDC Partnership and the UNFCCC Regional Collaborating Center, a regional stock-taking meeting that brought together 18 organizations to support countries update their nationally determined contributions and to demonstrate concrete actions on synergies. At the regional level, UNEP brings member states together through a number of regional platforms to coordinate action on environmental challenges. These range from environmental rights to air pollution to oceans to climate adaptation, as well as environment and health. These include providing support to the ASEAN to advance environmental rights through the Regional Declaration on the Right to a Safe, Healthy, and Sustainable Environment, the Asset Deposition Monitoring Network in East Asia, the Coordinating Body on the Seas of East Asia, the Asia-Pacific Adaptation Forum, and the Ministerial Forum on Environment and Health. I'm pleased to note that at the 7th UN Environment Assembly that was held in Nairobi in December last year, a number of UNEA resolutions that were proposed by our member states from this region were adopted. This includes a resolution on strengthening the global management of wildfires, proposed by India, a resolution on enhancing the meaningful participation of youth in environmental processes and enhancing environmental education, proposed by Sri Lanka, a resolution accelerating global action to promote the climate resilience of coral reefs, proposed by Fiji, and a resolution on promoting synergies, cooperation, or collaboration of multilateral environmental agreements and other relevant environment instruments, proposed by Japan. The strong voice of the Asia-Pacific member states were heard at the UN Environment Assembly, facilitated through the 6th Forum of Ministers and Environment Authorities of Asia-Pacific, held in Fiji from 26 to 28 August 2025. This forum served as a valuable platform for member states and other stakeholders to provide regional inputs to the Assembly. I would like to take this opportunity, given your presence, Honorable Minister Linda Deseru-Tuboyo, Minister for Information, Environment and Climate Change of Fiji, to thank you for the leadership and hospitality in hosting this forum. As this committee adopts a new ministerial declaration and a regional program of action this week, UNEP affirms our commitment to walk this path together with ESCAP and member states. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, and I acknowledge your gratitude, Madam. I now give the floor to Mrs. Sonam C. Namgyal, Director, Environment and Climate Change, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, followed by the International Organization for Migration. Madam, you have the floor.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished representatives, BIMSTEC is grateful for the opportunity to contribute to the stock-taking dialogue, and we commend the ESCAP Secretariat for the comprehensive assessment presented in the documentation under this agenda item. The challenges in particular resonate with the daily realities confronting the peoples of the Bay of Bengal region. Guided by the BIMSTEC Bangkok Vision of 2030, our region is committed to advancing a resilient, sustainable, and prosperous Bay of Bengal community through deeper regional cooperation and collective action. The Bay of Bengal region faces interconnected challenges, including climate change, biodiversity loss, air pollution, water stress, environmental degradation, and increasing disaster risks. As these challenges transcend national boundaries, regional cooperation is essential to achieving sustainable development. BIMSTEC's priorities in this regard are fourfold. First, strengthening climate resilience through enhanced cooperation on adaptation, disaster risk reduction, early warning systems, and capacity building. This complements BIMSTEC's ongoing efforts to promote regional resilience and preparedness against climate-related disasters. Second, advancing sustainable water resources management remains fundamental to sustainable development. The Hindu Kush Himalayas, the third pole, is the origin of more than 10 river systems that sustain nearly 2 billion across Asia, many of them in BIMSTEC member states. Snow and ice reserves are melting at alarming rates, threatening Bhutan and Nepal with glacial outburst floods, with simultaneous impacts downstream for neighboring Bangladesh, India, and Myanmar. At the other extreme, coastal member states face salinization of aquifers and sea level encroachment. Water, as rightly framed, is indeed a superconnector, and there is significant scope for regional cooperation on integrated water resources management, knowledge sharing, and capacity development. Third, promoting clean air through greater regional dialogue, information exchange, monitoring, and the sharing of best practices to address the transboundary impacts of air pollution on public health, ecosystems, and economic productivity. The BIMSTEC region is acutely affected by the need for clean air, as South Asia, home to 4 of our 7 member states, remains a global hotspot for human exposure to fine particulate matter and has amongst the highest burden of disease attributed to air pollution at a recorded nearly 2.7 million deaths annually. Air pollution is the leading environmental risk factor for death in the region, with death rates 5 to 10 times higher compared to higher income regions. Transboundary haze, crop burning, and rapidly growing urban emission sources do not respect borders. Fourth, advancing a sustainable blue economy and strengthening the protection of marine and coastal ecosystems in the Bay of Bengal. BIMSTEC has increasingly recognized the importance of ocean-based cooperation as a driver of sustainable growth, resilience, and environmental stewardship. The BIMSTEC Secretariat looks forward to strengthening collaboration with ESCAP and other partners to support practical, inclusive, and regionally driven solutions for sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Namgyal, for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Iori Kato, IOM Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific. Mr. Kato, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, across our region, rising seas, extreme weather, land degradation, heat, and pollution are reshaping livelihoods, health, and development prospects. These pressures are weakening resilience, widening inequalities, and increasing the need to move. For some, mobility is indeed a choice. For others, human mobility, however, becomes a necessity when land and livelihoods can no longer be sustained. Yet, our Asia-Pacific region has been demonstrating clear paths forward. The Pacific Regional Framework on Climate Mobility is one important example. Also, across South and Southeast Asia, governments are taking steps to integrate human mobility into adaptation and development planning, including through frameworks such as the Kathmandu Declaration. These are important advances, yet progress remains uneven and therefore more must be done. At the regional review of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration held last year here, member states have invited ESCAP and the Regional United Nations Network on Migration, including IOM, to continue supporting the implementation of the Global Compact for Migration and migration-related sustainable development goals. We must now translate this shared commitment into action. For this, we need to plan ahead. We must ensure that those who move can do so safely and with dignity. When human mobility is well managed, it can support adaptation, strengthen livelihoods, and reduce vulnerability. But when human mobility is forced, unsupported, or poorly managed, it can increase pressure on cities and deepen risks for the most vulnerable. As this region prepares for host the pre-COP conference in Fiji and Tuvalu, I invite member states and partners to advance 4 priorities. First, integrate climate mobility into climate, environment, and development policies. Second, invest in data and mobility-sensitive early warning systems. 3, expand safe and regular migration pathways so that mobility becomes an option for adaptation. And 4th, strengthen regional cooperation and ensure that finance reaches communities under greatest strain. Climate mobility must be anticipated, planned, and governed in ways that protect people and support sustainable development. This will help ensure that environment action delivers for people and that human mobility becomes part of the solutions. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kato of IOM, for your intervention. Before we move on to agenda item 3, I would like to invite any delegations, whether country or organizations that have not given their address under agenda item 2. There are any that wish to deliver your statement? I see none. Thank you. I will now open the floor for country interventions under agenda item 3. I would like to urge all speakers to adhere to the time limit of 4 minutes for ministerial level delegates and 3 minutes for all other speakers, to ensure we can hear from all those participating. I also would like to remind delegations that in case of longer interventions, you may only deliver the summary version and provide the Secretariat with the full statement for sharing through the Committee on Environment and Development website. Based on the request received, the Secretariat has prepared a tentative list of speakers. If other delegations wish to speak, they may raise their country nameplate and notify the Secretariat. In order to maintain order and for delegations to be ready to take the floor, when I call on the speaker, I will also announce the delegation next in line. Delegations called upon to speak would speak from their country seats. I hope this is clear to all delegations. If so, I now open the floor for statements. I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Mar Magayan, Special Envoy of the Armenian Presidency of COP17 of Armenia, followed by Pakistan, to deliver a statement. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Deputy Executive Secretary, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. Allow me first to thank UN ESCAP for convening this timely discussion in the framework of the 9th session of Committee on Environment and Development, and for the concept note provided by the Secretariat. And thank you also to the distinguished panel for their insightful remarks earlier. As the international community enters the final countdown towards 2030, it is increasingly evident that sustainable development goals cannot be achieved through isolated policy responses. The triple planetary climate crisis, climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution is interconnected, and our response must be equally so. This message strongly resonates with the priorities of the Armenian presidency of the 17th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. Our presidency has chosen the motto, taking action for nature. For us, this means acting more strategically by bringing together policies, institutions, financing, and knowledge in ways that reinforce one another. Rather than being viewed as separate agendas, biodiversity, climate, and pollution are increasingly recognized as mutually reinforcing pillars of sustainable development. From the perspective of the incoming COP17 presidency, One of our central priorities will be the first global review of collective progress in implementing the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The global review should be more than an assessment of biodiversity outcomes. It is an opportunity to examine whether governance systems, financing arrangements, and implementation mechanisms are sufficiently integrated in delivering lasting results. Colleagues, finance is central to this discussion. Many countries have demonstrated political ambition, yet implementation continues to be constrained by fragmented financing, limited institutional capacity, and insufficient access to data. Predictable, accessible, and coherent financing is essential, not only for biodiversity, but for delivering multiple environmental and development objectives simultaneously. Equally important are institutions capable of working across sectors and across levels of government. Whole-of-government approaches supported by coordinated planning and shared objectives can help turn synergies into practical outcomes. Regional and multilateral cooperation has a vital role to play. No country can address today's environmental challenges alone. Regional platforms such as ESCAP provide valuable opportunities to exchange experience, strengthen capacities, and scale up successful policy solutions. As incoming presidency, Armenia attaches particular importance to strengthening synergies across the three Rio Conventions. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation are driven by many of the same underlying pressures. Better coordinated implementation can therefore generate environmental, social, and economic benefits while making more effective use of limited resources. In this regard, the Asia-Pacific Synergies report offers valuable insights. It demonstrates that integrated approaches can strengthen resilience, improve efficiency, and accelerate progress across multiple sustainable development goals. Distinguished delegates, as we prepare for COP17 in Yerevan, Armenia is committed to fostering a presidency that is inclusive, practical, and implementation-oriented. We hope the conference will help strengthen cooperation across sectors, mobilize effective partnerships, advance enabling conditions for implementation, and promote greater coherence across international environmental processes. Thank you.
Thank you, and Excellency, for your intervention. I now call on Her Excellency Ms. Shezra Manzab Ali Khan Karal, Federal Minister of State for Climate Change and Environmental Coordination of Pakistan, followed by the Republic of Korea, to give her statement. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished heads of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to address this distinguished session on behalf of the government and people of Pakistan. I extend my sincere appreciation to the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific for convening this crucial high-level forum and for the timely preparation of the Asia-Pacific Synergies Report, which provides a pragmatic roadmap for translating integrated planning into coordinated action across our region. We meet at a defining moment for Asia and the Pacific. Our region is confronting an intensifying triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution that is converging with rapid urbanization, widening inequality, and ongoing development transitions to create compounding vulnerabilities. The ESCAP Synergies report rightly identifies that fragmented sectoral approaches are no longer sufficient. Integrated and synergistic policy making, where actions are coordinated across sectors, generates co-benefits, minimizes trade-offs, and accelerates progress on multiple sustainable development goals simultaneously. This is not merely an analytical observation, it is a strategic imperative for our collective survival and prosperity. For Pakistan, the urgency of integrated action could not be clearer. Despite contributing less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, we are among the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. Pakistan is home to over 13,000 glaciers in the Hindu Kush Karakoram Himalayan range, the largest concentration outside the polar region. This critical cryosphere feeds the Indus River system, sustaining nearly 95% of our agriculture, energy production, and the livelihoods of over 240 million people. Excellencies, climate change is systematically eroding the foundations of sustainable development. The financial burden of recurrent disasters diverts scarce public resources away from essential investments in health, education, and infrastructure. The cascading impacts on agriculture, water, energy, and public health amplify poverty and inequality, particularly for women, youth, and the marginalized communities. This is why Pakistan has embedded climate action at the heart of its national development agenda. Pakistan was among the first countries to adopt the SDGs as its national development framework, institutionalizing their integration through our dedicated SDGs support unit and embedding them in our 5-year plans. Our National Climate Change Policy 2021, the National Adaptation Plan 2023, and our updated Nationally Determined Contributions 3, which commits to a 50% reduction in projected emissions by 2035, reflect a whole-of-the-government approach that mainstreams climate action across all sectors. We are also advancing climate-resilient agriculture, disaster risk reduction, integrated water resource management, and community-based adaptation. Pakistan has introduced green budget tagging to track climate spending transparently, issued its first sovereign green sukuk to finance climate-aligned projects, and secured over $1.5 billion in international climate finance, including through IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Facility. The Upscaling Green Pakistan program has expanded protected areas to 20.44% of national territory, exceeding our original 12 to 15% goal, and created over 10,800 green jobs. Excellencies, despite these commitments and achievements, implementation remains severely constrained by a widening climate finance gap. Achieving Pakistan's climate target requires investments exceeding $565 billion by 2035, resources that far exceed our domestic capacity. Pakistan has consistently called for scaled-up, predictable, and accessible climate finance, particularly for adaptation and resilience, strengthened technology transfer and capacity building, and expanded support for nature-based solutions and ecosystem restoration. Regional cooperation is the indispensable multiplier. The Asia-Pacific Synergies Report provides a practical framework for breaking down silos and translating integrated planning into coordinated action. Excellencies, the science, technology, and policy tools required to address climate change already exist. The Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda share a common horizon. The achievement of the SDGs is indispensable, inseparable from effective climate action. As we approach 2030, the global focus must shift decisively from commitments to implementation. Pakistan reaffirms its commitment to advancing integrated and synergistic approaches to sustainable development. We look forward to contributing to and supporting the adoption of a robust and actionable regional program of action that responds effectively to the complex challenges facing our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Yeonjai Park, President, National Institute of Environmental Research for the Republic of Korea, followed by Indonesia. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellency, distinguished delegates, only 4 years remain until 2030. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet, after 10 years, we have achieved only about 35% of our targets. Fragmented policy aren't enough to address the triple planetary crisis. Our time and resources are limited. This is why we need synergy. Synergy means aligning different policy objectives toward a common direction. It means designing policy, financing, and governance in an integrated way to make the best use of limited resources. This is why synergy is at the heart of our discussion today. Excellencies, allow me to share 3 areas where the Republic of Korea is pursuing a more integrated approach. First, governance. Last year, the Republic of Korea established the Ministry of Climate, Energy, and Environment, bringing climate, energy, and environment policy under one ministry. This new governance framework strengthened the link between climate policy and energy transition. Under this framework, we are advancing the energy transition and industrial decarbonization through a single strategy for a green transformation. We will narrow the gap between our climate goals and implementation. We will also strengthen synergy across climate, energy, and environmental policy. Second, nature-based solution. Nature-based solutions offer one of the most effective ways to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution together. What matters most is delivering results that require credible indicators to measure outcome and policy frameworks that translate evidence into action. The Republic of Korea is developing a national indicator framework for nature-based solution in partnership with IUCN and local governments. We look forward to sharing our experience with countries across the region. Lastly, the circular economy. The triple planetary crisis is fundamentally rooted in the unsustainable use of natural resources. Our traditional linear economy has consumed more resources and generated more waste. As a result, greenhouse gas emission, environmental degradation, and pollution have all increased. A circular economy offers a practical example of how one policy approach can deliver multiple environment benefits. By increasing circularity throughout the supply chains, we can reduce resource extraction, minimize waste, and lower the environmental footprint of production and consumption. The circular economy is a clear example of a synergistic approach to addressing the triple planetary crisis. The Republic of Korea is promoting circularity across the entire life cycle of products. We have introduced the Korean eco-design framework and strengthened systems for the recovery and recycling of future waste stream, including batteries, electronic products, and plastics. International cooperation is equally important. Supply chains extend across borders from resource extraction and manufacturing to consumption and recycling. The Republic of Korea will continue to share its policy experience with countries across Asia and Pacific and work with regional partners to advance the circular economy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Park, for your interventions. I now call on Mr. Sigit Relian Toro. My apologies. Are we with Indonesia?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. I now call on Mr. Sigit Relian Toro, Deputy Minister for Environmental Governance and Sustainable Natural Resources, Ministry of Environment of Indonesia. He will be followed by Nepal and then Sri Lanka. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the Asia-Pacific region continues to face increasingly complex and interconnected challenges. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution are no longer isolated issues. They are mutually reinforcing crises affecting economic resilience, food security, public health, livelihood, and the well-being of our people. At the same time, the region remains off track in achieving the Sustainable Development Goal. This call for more integrated, coherent, and effective approach to accelerate implementation. Indonesia believes that synergy must become a core organizing principle in sustainable development policies. Climate action, biodiversity protection, pollution control, circular economy, public health, and economic development should be advanced as mutually reinforcing agenda, not as separated tracks. Sustainable development policies should generate multiple benefits across environmental, economic, and social dimensions, including supporting a just, affordable, and inclusive energy transition that leaves no one behind. Indonesia welcomes the transformation pathways highlighted in the report, particularly health-centered climate action, nature-positive development, circular economy approach, and city as platform for integrated solutions. We underline the importance of nature-positive nexus approach that connect biodiversity conservation with food and water security, climate resilience, public health, and community livelihood. Indonesia has continued to mainstream sustainable development by promoting circular economy initiative, strengthening ecosystem restoration and conservation, supporting sustainable urban development, improving air quality, and enhancing climate resilience. These efforts are pursued through the integration of SDGs, climate, biodiversity, and pollution control objectives into national planning and sectoral strategies. Indonesia also recognizes the importance of whole of government and multi-level governance. Stronger alignment of mandates, planning, budgeting, indicators, and accountability across ministers and between national and subnational government is essential to translate integrated policy into concrete action. Cities and subnational government play a critical role as delivery platform for synergistic solution, empowering them through predictable financing, technical capacity, data system, and policy support will be key to turning national ambition into local impact. At the regional level, Indonesia emphasized the importance of cooperation, knowledge sharing, and partnership. ESCAP can play an important role in facilitating best practices, technical cooperation, and integrated policy framework tailored to national circumstances and development priorities. Indonesia stands ready to engage constructively in regional initiatives under ESCAP on circular economy, sustainable cities, clean air, nature-positive development, and subnational capacity building. Indonesia also underscored that the success of synergistic approach depends on adequate means of implementation, including financing, technology, capacity building, and integrated data system. We underline the need for scale-up, predictable, accessible, and where appropriate, concessional financing that incentivize multi-benefit outcome, particularly for vulnerable developing countries. Indonesia supports the consideration of regional program of action on advancing synergy for sustainable development in Asia and Pacific with focus on practical implementation, respect for national circumstances, and strengthen regional cooperation. Indonesia supports continued regional effort to advance synergistic solutions that are practical, inclusive, and action-oriented. By strengthening collaboration and embracing integrated approach, the Asia-Pacific region will be better equipped to accelerate the achievement of SDG while effectively addressing the triple planetary crisis. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reliantor of Indonesia, for your intervention. I'll now call on Dr. Rajendra KC, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Forests and Environments of Nepal, to address us. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to address this distinguished gathering on behalf of the Government of Nepal. I feel privileged to participate in this important meeting. Nepal firmly believes that synergistic policy making and strengthened regional collaboration are among the most cost-effective and efficient means of accelerating progress towards sustainable development. As the resources are limited and the development needs and ambitions are unlimited, the synergistic policy making with the participation of the whole of governments and the whole of society's approach is the fundamental to achieve the outcomes that cannot be realized through compartmentalized thinking and siloed efforts. Integrated approaches that simultaneously address, align, and create synergies among climate action, biodiversity conservation, pollution control, sustainable land management, and resilient livelihoods are essential to achieve sustainable development goals and their targets. Distinguished Madam Chair, this brings me to the heart of the discussion, synergy. The Asia-Pacific Synergy Report, which was launched just yesterday, confirms what experience already tells us about. Over 140 case studies presented in the report tell about the issues, problems, and also provide recommended actions. Climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and development cannot be solved in separate boxes and silos. Fragmented and sectoral responses waste out scarce resources and undermine the co-benefit that integration can deliver. Nepal has promulgated various policies on forest, on environment, climate change, wetlands, agroforestry, and medicinal and aromatic plants, as well as National Urban Development Strategy. All these policies are interconnected and contribute directly to the climate action, the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, and Nepal's national prosperity. Nepal's ongoing 16th five-year periodic plan has strongly integrated climate action and SDG targets to promote synergies and accelerate sustainable development. But integrated ambition at home must be matched by integrated and enhanced support from our partners. Finance that is adequate, predictable, and accessible, alongside technology and capacity building for the underdeveloped countries. Nepal therefore supports the regional program of action on advancing synergies and asks that the special situation of mountains, landlocked countries, and least developed countries be kept firmly in view. Excellencies, from fragmentation to integration, from commitment to delivery, this is the path our region must walk together. As the famous proverb says, if you want to go fast, walk alone. If you want to go far, walk together. Achieving sustainable development requires synergistic policies, strong partnership, coordinated and collective action. Nepal remains fully committed to working with all partners to build a cleaner, greener, happier, more resilient and prosperous and sustainable destiny for present and the future generation. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra, for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Udaya Kumara, Additional Secretary, Development, Ministry of Environment of Sri Lanka, to take the floor.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates and excellencies, as we gather for the 9th session, we recognize that our region stands at a decisive moment in its development trajectory. In Sri Lanka, as in many of our neighboring nations, we face the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. These crises are not isolated. They are interconnected, degraded. We appreciate the document's recognition that fragmented, siloed approaches are no longer sufficient to address these cascading threats. Moving forward, Sri Lanka is committed to adopting synergies as a co-organizing principle for our national development. We believe that deliberate efforts to align climate action, biodiversity conservation, and socio-economic development offer the most cost-efficient, equitable, and resilient pathway for our future. Our future plans will focus on 4 key transformation pathways. First one, we intended to further integrate health consideration into our national determined contributions, NDCs, by linking climate mitigation to immediate local benefits. Second one, recognizing our extraordinary biodiversity. We aim to move beyond threatening conservation as a stand-alone sectors. Third one, to address pollution at its sources. Finally, as urbanization continues, we view our cities as critical platforms for integrated solutions. We plan to align land use, transport, and waste management through coherent urban planning to translate national ambitions into local impact. To make these synergies a reality, we recognize that need for institutionalized governance that align mandates and budgeted across ministries. We also highlight the importance of integrated data system to illustrate core benefits and trade-off, enabling evidence-based decision-making. In conclusion, Sri Lanka stands ready to support the adoption of a regional program of action on advancing synergies by leveraging regional cooperation to harmonize our approaches and share lessons. We can ensure that our collective effort deliver outcomes greater than the sum of their parts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kumara, for your statement. I now call on Ms. Firdausi Rubina, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change of Bangladesh, followed by Thailand and then China. Ms. Rubina, you have the floor.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. Excellencies, Bangladesh welcome ESCAP's paper on accelerating progress towards sustainable development through synergistic policies and solutions. The message is clear. Asia and the Pacific cannot achieve the SDG through fragmented action. At the current patch, about 88% of measurable SDG targets in the region will not be reached by 2030. The region also accounts for around 60% of global greenhouse gas emission, while remaining among the most climate vulnerable region. More than 2.2 billion urban residents now live in Asia-Pacific cities where emissions, resource use, and climate risks are concentrated. For Bangladesh, synergies are not a theoretical concept, they are a practical necessity. As a highly populated, climate vulnerable delta, we face flood, cyclone, salinity, river erosion, biodiversity pressure, air pollution, and urban stress at the same time. Therefore, our policies increasingly connect climate action, health, water, food, security, biodiversity, cities, and livelihoods. Respected colleagues, Bangladesh has submitted its NDC 3.0, committing to reduce 84.97 megaton carbohydrate equivalent by 2035 from business as usual, including 6.39% unconditionally and 13.92% conditionally with international support. Our National Adaptation Plan 2023-2050 identifies 130 interventions across 8 sectors, including water, agriculture, urban areas, ecosystem, and governance. We are also advancing the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2000, clean air planning, renewable energy, climate-resilient agriculture, coastal afforestation, disaster early warning, and social protection. Distinguished delegates, we support the proposed regional program of action on advancing synergies. It should prioritize health-centered climate action, nature-positive food, water, energy system, circular economy approach, and cities as delivery platforms. We also called for predictable climate finance, technology transfer, integrated data system, capacity building, and stronger regional cooperation. Bangladesh stands ready to work with ESCAP and member states to turn synergy into measurable people-centered implementation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Rubina, for your intervention. I now call on our gracious host, Ms. Ponsri Mingkwan, Director, Division of Foreign Affairs Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Thailand, to address us. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellency, distinguished delegates, Thailand welcomed the report on advancing synergies for sustainable development and commends ESCAP for its continued effort to promote integrated solutions to the interconnected challenge of climate change, biodiversity, loss, and pollution. As we approach 2030, incremental and fragmented action will not be sufficient. Accelerated progress toward the SDG requires a decisive shift towards integrated policy and whole-of-society approach that generate multiple benefits across environmental, economic, and social dimensions. Thailand, therefore, calls for stronger effort in 3 key areas. First, we must strengthen policy coherence across sectors and levels of government. Holistic environmental protection should be addressed through integrated planning and implementation frameworks that maximize synergies and reduce trade-offs. Second, greater support should be provided to local governments and community, which are at the forefront of implementation. And third, regional cooperation must be further enhanced. ESCAP can play an important role in facilitating knowledge exchange, promoting evidence-based policy making, and support the replica and scale-up of successful practice across the region. Strengthening regional platform for technical cooperation and peer learning will be critical to accelerating implementation and delivering tangible results. Thailand remains committed to advance integrated approach through initiatives such as the Bio-Circular Green Economy Model, climate change action under our NDC roadmap, and net zero pathway, integrated air pollution management, and resilient urban and community development. We stand ready to share experience and work with fellow member states and partner to promote practical solutions that deliver co-benefit for people, prosperity, and the planet. Let us translate our shared commitment into accelerated action and concrete outcomes for sustainable development across Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Kapkunka, Director, for your comments. I now call on Mr. Di Weijie, Deputy Director General from China, to deliver a statement. Sir, you have the floor.
尊敬的主席女士，各位代表，大家下午好。大家都在谈到 全球落实2030年可持续发展议程的进度滞后，而未来5年将是关键的窗口期。亚太地区气候灾害高发，能源消耗集中，发展差距显著，需要我们齐心协力，采取综合、协同、整体的措施和行动，加快推动可持续发展目标的实现。很高兴我们已经有了一个很好的报告，我们还会有一个区域的行动方案，让各国家有了行动的参考和目标。长期以来，中国坚定不移走生态优先、绿色发展之路，协同推进降碳减污、扩绿增长。一是加快推进绿色低碳转型，大力推动产业结构、能源结构、交通运输结构优化调整，建成了全球最大的清洁能源体系和碳排放权交易市场，可再生能源装机量居世界首位，全社会每消费10度电，其中就有4度是绿电，新能源汽车市场渗透率超过50%。二是持续加强生态环境改善，过去5年，城市 PM2.5 浓度累计下降20%，地表水质断面优良比例提高到91.4%，全国森林覆盖率超过25%，贡献了全球1/4的增绿面积。三是深化生态领域改革，今年颁布了世界上第一部以生态环境命名的法典，一体推进生态环境分区管控、环境影响评价与排污许可全链条制度改革，加快国家生态环境质量监测网络数字化转型，生态环境治理现代化水平明显提升。四是积极参与全球环境与气候治理，对外宣布了新一轮国家自主贡献目标，积极推动国际环境公约履约进程，推进“一带一路”建设，开展应对气候变化南南合作。未来，中方愿与各国一道，凝聚多边共识，深化全球环境治理协同联动，推动环境治理与可持续发展目标的深度融合，拓展全球治理多元参与渠道，加强治理经验互鉴，共同应对全球环境与发展挑战，共建人与自然生命共同体，携手迈向更加繁荣可持续的未来。谢谢。
Thank you, Mr. Wejia, for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Filip Govadovsky, Deputy Chief, International Organizations Section, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of the Russian Federation, who will be followed by Japan to make his intervention. Sir, you have the floor.
Благодарю, уважаемая госпожа председатель, уважаемые делегаты. Российская Федерация приветствует синергичный подход и поддерживает поиск взаимодополняющих решений в интересах устойчивого развития. Вопросы охраны окружающей среды носят комплексный характер. Разработка соответствующего подхода должна осуществляться в рамках профильных площадок и не приводить к искусственному слиянию автономных направлений деятельности. В отношении развития регионального сотрудничества по вопросам борьбы с изменением климата полагаем целесообразным придерживаться принципов, согласованных на площадке рамочной конвенции ООН об изменении климата и Парижского соглашения. Консолидация усилий на основе имеющихся механизмов ООН, а также развитие регионального взаимодействия дает широкие возможности как для принятия комплексных мер по противодействию изменению климата, так и для эффективного управления водными ресурсами. В условиях изменения климата и растущей антропогенной нагрузки Российская Федерация считает развитие трансграничного сотрудничества в области поверхностных и подземных вод одним из приоритетов. При этом трансграничное водное сотрудничество возможно только на основе принципов равноправных и уважительных отношений в рамках межправительственных соглашений. В состав реализуемого с 2025 года национального проекта «Экологическое благополучие» входят 6 федеральных проектов, направленных на решение актуальных задач современной природоохранной повестки. По состоянию на начало 2026 года можем отметить следующие результаты. В 27 субъектах Российской Федерации проведены мероприятия по обследованию и оценке 125 объектов, обладающих признаками объектов накопленного вреда. Введено в эксплуатацию 32 объекта инфраструктуры общей мощностью 2,7 миллиона тонн в год по утилизации твердых коммунальных отходов. Для 29 городов утверждены комплексные планы мероприятий по снижению выбросов загрязняющих веществ в атмосферный воздух. Площадь земель лесного фонда, обеспеченная актуальными и достоверными сведениями о лесах, составила 22,4 миллиона гектар. В результате обновления списков объектов животного и растительного мира, занесенных в Красную книгу Российской Федерации, под охраной государства находится 443 объекта животного мира и 741 объект растительного мира. Российская Федерация поддерживает Куньминско-Монреальскую глобальную рамочную программу в области биоразнообразия и осуществляет работу по обновлению национальной стратегии и плана действий в области биоразнообразия с участием органов федеральной исполнительной власти, подведомственных государственных учреждений, институтов Российской академии наук, коммерческих и общественных организаций. В рамках совместного проекта субрегиональной программы по природоохранному сотрудничеству в Северо-Восточной Азии НИАСПЕК и Российской Федерации по сохранению перелетных птиц в мае этого года во Владивостоке состоялся тренинг ученых-орнитологов. В ходе тренинга участники обсудили вопросы современного состояния популяции малых колпиц, черных журавлей и даурских журавлей, актуальные методы мониторинга, оценку места обитания птиц и проблематику управления водно-болотными угодьями. Также в ноябре этого года в Москве запланировано проведение 6-го международного форума низкоуглеродных городов, направленного в том числе на продвижение инновационных подходов в области устойчивого транспорта, энергоэффективности и цифрового управления. Выражаем готовность содействовать дальнейшему развитию многостороннего сотрудничества в природоохранной сфере в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Mr. Govardowski. I now call on Mr. Yamada Jun, Deputy Permanent Representative of Japan to ESCAP, Counselor, Embassy of Japan, to address us, and he will be followed by the Secretariat for the Acid Deposition Monitoring Network in East Asia. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, since the 2022 Ministerial Declaration, we have witnessed certain progress across the 6 priority areas. However, as highlighted in the conference documents, siloed policies and sector-by-sector investments have left us falling short in adequately addressing the scale, urgency, and interconnected nature of the challenges we face. In this context, Japan welcomes the preparation of the Ministerial Declaration and the Regional Program of Action, which carry a vital message that diverse stakeholders must break down silos and work together to foster synergies through regional cooperation. My delegation would like to take this opportunity to introduce some of Japan's recent undertakings that showcase the examples of synergistic approaches across sectors. Firstly, in urban planning, Japan promotes compact, human-centered urban planning supported by digital tools while ensuring that technology serves people through transparent and collaborative governance. Smart City Initiative balance innovation with resilience and security through privacy by design, strong data governance, and citizen participation. Secondly, the UN Water Conference, in which Japan has been serving as co-chair of the Interactive Dialogue C in 2026, we hope that by addressing the themes of the conference, we will generate new synergy and dynamism, injecting new enthusiasm, actions, and resources, particularly those out of water box into the water sector. Japan will work to identify such effective and responsible solutions through the series of processes leading up to the 2026 UN Water Conference. Finally, in the transportation sector, Japan recognizes that many related technologies in the road transport sector are still under development and working toward carbon neutrality and face a range of challenges. We consider it important to realistically pursue all available technological options. Japan is therefore advancing the development of next-generation batteries, motors, hydrogen technologies, and synthetic fuels, which are key to the wider adoption of electric vehicles, while promoting strategies tailored to the needs and circumstances of different regions. We are also advancing efforts to decarbonizing railway operations domestically and has cooperated in the electrification of mass transit system project, the Red Line in Bangkok, as a public-private initiative. We are making efforts towards the establishment of green shipping corridors to contribute to achieving greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets. We are also implementing new environmental technologies for aircraft and aeronautical equipment, including electrification, hydrogen technologies, and weight saving and efficiency improvements. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Jun. I now call on Ms. Yoo-jeon Kim, Senior Program Management Officer of ENET, who will be followed by UN Habitat and UNCRD. Ms. Kim, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Secretariat for the Asset Deposition Monitoring Network in East Asia, EANet, on behalf of its 13 participating countries, welcomes this theme of the 9th session of the committee focusing on synergies. EANet was established in 2001 against the backdrop of increasing risks related to excess atmospheric deposition of acidic substances in the 1990s. In recent years, EANet has evolved to address wider atmospheric environment-related substances, such as fine particulate matter and surface ozone. For over 20 years, EANet has fostered a reputable coordinated regional monitoring system using standardized methodologies and a scientific exchange platform. EANet's medium-term plan for 2026 to 2030 places emphasis on promoting increased efficiency and effectiveness and building synergies as one of the MTP's guiding principles. Air pollution is closely linked to the urgent environmental, economic, and social challenges. Solutions exist, and as described in the Regional Action Program on Air Pollution, these include, among others, sharing of open data on air pollution, the use of stationary and mobile air quality monitoring technologies, and building the technical capacities of officials to collect and interpret data, which are all tangible activities in the expertise of the EANet's strong regional network of scientists and policymakers. In fact, EANet data is available in open access, and EANet's latest publication provides region-specific guidance on hybrid air quality monitoring networks, integrating reference-grade monitors and low-cost sensors. Through its project fund, EANet further strengthens regional capacity building through strategic partnerships. Excellencies, EANet, as one of the long-standing regional cooperation networks on monitoring of atmospheric deposition, has an opportunity to share its best practices and strengthen partnerships with other regional mechanisms. This includes further supporting the RAPAP in close collaboration with long-term partners, UNEP and ESCAP, and in line with SDG 17. In times when multilateralism has never been more needed, when resources are limited, EANet reaffirms its commitment to strengthening collaboration, bridging expertise, and utilizing existing regional wealth of knowledge, while encouraging region-wide cooperation to reach the goals set by the 2030 Agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kim, for your intervention. I now call on Mr. Srinivasa Popuri, Chief, Multi-Country Office, UN Habitat, to address us. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Distinguished Chair, Her Excellency Ms. Linda Diseru-Tabuya, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Fiji, Excellencies, representatives of diplomatic corps, and distinguished delegates, partners, and friends. On behest of Under-Secretary General Ana Claudia Rosbach, the Executive Director of UN Habitat, please allow me to begin by acknowledging the commendable efforts of ESCAP and our dear colleagues there who have long been our partners in championing sustainable urban development across Asia and the Pacific. We welcome Secretariat reports and its core message, the synergies, the alignment of policies, actions and systems across climate, biodiversity, pollution, and development offer the most cost-efficient, equitable, and resilient pathway to accelerate SDGs. UN Habitat strongly endorses this report identification of cities as key delivery platforms for synergistic solutions. This region is home to more than 2.2 billion urban residents, of which 696 million are living in slums or informal settlements. Cities concentrate emissions, resource use, and vulnerability, and therefore hold great potential for synergies. Integrated urban planning is precisely where national ambition becomes local impact, aligning land use, housing, transport, energy, water, and wastewater under a single coherent framework. Excellencies, this message resonates strongly with UN Habitat Strategic Plan 2026-2029, which places adequate housing, land, and basic services at the heart of sustainable urbanization. This reflects a growing recognition that adequate housing cannot be addressed in isolation. It relies on integrated approaches linking land governance, infrastructure, climate resilience, mobility, and access to essential services, a synergistic framing that mirrors the integrated approach before this committee. This conviction was reaffirmed by this year in Baku, Azerbaijan, where the 13th session of the World Urban Forum, convened under the theme of Housing the World, Safe and Resilient Cities and Communities, as the largest forum in its history, bringing together almost 57,000 participants from 176 countries. The WUF 13 concluded with the Baku Call to Action and its 15 recommendations. UN Habitat is engaging with partners, governments, through its environmental and climate change strategies, as well as regional programs, in partnership with regional economic commissions like ESCAP and other regional bodies, to safeguard natural resources and ecosystems as a catalyst for socio-economic development and sustainable development at the city scale. Extreme heat, air pollution, floods, and other urban crises linked to climate change are pressing challenges that must be treated as the fundamental priorities in our work. Therefore, we joined forces with our colleagues ESCAP, or AP initiative on Asia-Pacific Sinking Cities initiative to address the issue of land subsidence, which is a silent crisis in this region. To translate these pathways into action, UN Habitat appeals to member states to empower cities and subnational governments as delivery platforms, supported by predictable financing and strengthened technical capacity. We commend the region's growing use of action-oriented VLRs to accelerate, monitor, and report on the progress of climate action and development. As we discuss the crucial role of regional cooperation today, I want to congratulate and commend ASEAN member states for their leadership in advancing coherent approaches to climate action and development through ASEAN Secretariat. Since 2020, UN Habitat has been proud to collaborate with Secretariat and its member states in implementing the ASEAN Sustainable Urbanization Strategy. Recognizing the cities that are primary sources of upstream waste generation, we are also supporting ASEAN's CMAP, the Southeast Asia Regional Program on Combating Marine Plastics. Looking ahead, heads of state and government, ministers and high representatives, and many of you will be gathering at United Nations New York in 16th and 17th of July 2026 for the high-level meeting of the General Assembly on the midterm review of the implementation of the New Urban Agenda. We invite the member states from this room also to carry this momentum forward there also. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Potpuri, for your comments. I now call on Mr. Chaudhry Rudra Charan Mohanty, Environment Program Coordinator of UNCRD, to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, UNCRD would like to express its deep appreciation to UN ESCAP and the Government of Thailand for convening this important session. The UN Center for Regional Development and Outreach Office of UNDESA is pleased to contribute to this session on accelerating progress towards sustainable development through integrated and synergistic policy options. As countries across Asia-Pacific face interconnected challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, growing pollution, resource depletion, rapid urbanization, and also increasing frequency and magnitude of natural disasters, there is an urgent need to move beyond sectoral approaches and embrace system-based solutions, integrated approaches that generate multiple environmental, social, and economic benefits simultaneously. In this regard, UNCRD has been supporting the member states in implementing two complementary regional policy framework, the Jaipur Declaration on 3R and Circular Economy, 2025 to 2035, 10 years declaration, and the Aichi 2030 Declaration on Environmentally Sustainable Transport, 2021 to 2030, which are the principal outcomes of two long-standing high-level policy processes facilitated by UNCRD, the Regional 3R and Circular Economy Forum in Asia Pacific, and the Regional EST Forum in Asia. Both the projects are in collaboration with the Ministry of the Environment of the Government of Japan. Together, they provide an integrated pathway for achieving low carbon, resource efficient, circular and resilient society, thereby accelerating progress towards SDGs and addressing also the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity, and pollution, growing pollution. Adopted at the 12th Regional 3R Forum, Circular Economy Forum in Asia Pacific by Government of India in March last year, the Jaipur Declaration on 3R and Circular Economy represents a renewed regional commitment by Asia Pacific countries to advance resource efficiency, sustainable consumption and production, and circular economy approaches in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. As a regional roadmap for transforming resource consumption and waste management patterns, the declaration recognizes that circularity is not only an environmental imperative, but also an economic opportunity for green growth, job creation, and resilience. And also, circular economy is inherently regenerative and restorative in the context of natural systems. In this regard, UNCRD welcomes the inclusion of the voluntary Jaipur Declaration in the final ESCAP bioeconomy resolution, and this recognition reinforces that bioeconomy and circular economy are mutually reinforcing. A particular important innovation under the Jaipur Declaration is the Cities Coalition on Circularity, which is C3. Cities are at the forefront of resource consumption, waste generation, infrastructure development, and climate action. C3 seeks to create a regional platform for cities to exchange knowledge, share best practices, and build capacities, and mobilize also the investment. So taking this opportunity of this ministerial session, UNCRD is therefore call upon the national governments, city authorities, development partners, UN entities, and MDBs to join hands in operationalizing the Cities Coalition on Circularity. So finally, Your Excellency, UNCRD remains committed to working closely with ESCAP and all the member countries, UN entities, and MDBs to advance these shared objectives, including strengthening synergies to address environment and development challenges and achieve the SDGs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mohanty. I now give the floor to Mr. Mohammed Irwan Aman, representative of UN Global Compact, Asia Pacific region. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of private sector participation of the UN Global Compact and to offer perspective from businesses community on this agenda, important agenda items. As a special initiative of the UN Secretary General, the UN Global Compact is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative with more than 25,000 participating companies across over 100 countries. The role of UN Global Compact is to mobilize responsible business in supporting of the SDGs, grounded in the 10 principles of UN Global Compact. The case for synergy is well established. At the current pace, 88% of the region measurable SDG target are projected to be missed, and the progress in areas such as poverty reduction and industry is being offset by environmental decline and widening inequality. These challenges are interconnected, and increasingly, the private sectors is approaching them as such. We see this in a practical practice across the region. Companies are recognizing the environmental and social risks are ultimately business risks. By integrating this consideration into core strategy, businesses are finding that the same investment can strengthen resilience, improve efficiency, and advance SDG simultaneously. The business case and the development case are converging. The private sector also contribute by helping to close the resourcing gaps. Developing countries face an estimated annual shortfall of $4 trillion to meet the SDG. And business has a meaningful part to play in mobilizing capital and innovation toward this shared objective. Importantly, the private sector government interface is where ambitions become implementation. Where this is clear and consistent policies, companies are able to invest with confidence and align their strategy with national priorities and the NDC, National Determined Contribution. Through its country network, the UN Global Compact works to bring companies together with the government, the UN, and the civil society, turning commitment into collective actions at national level. In closing, the private sector is an engaged and willing partners in advancing climate and development objectives together. The UN Global Compact remain committed, supporting that contribution in the region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aman, for your intervention. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we have almost reached the end of our allotted time for today. I will now close the list of speakers for today, and we will resume statements under Agenda Item 3 tomorrow. The Secretariat has informed me that we will now proceed with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific and the Institute for Global Environment Strategies. May I invite the Master of Ceremony to guide us through the proceedings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good afternoon and a warm welcome to the signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies and the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, which marks an important milestone in the long-standing strategic partnership between our two entities. I would like to invite Ms. Remita Salcia Alice-Javana, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, and Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, President of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, to come in front of the rostrum and proceed with the signing ceremony by signing each one copy of the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, I would like to ask both principals to kindly pose for a photo. Thank you. May I now invite IGS and ESCAP staff to join the principals for a second photo? Thank you. Thank you. I now invite Ms. Remita Salcia-Lizjabana, the Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to deliver her remarks.
Very quickly, again, very good afternoon to all distinguished colleagues present here. And first of all, I would like to recognize, of course, Professor Takeuchi, President of IGES, and distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends. It is indeed a great pleasure for ESCAP to renew its partnership with the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES, through this new MOU. Over the years, ESCAP and IGES have worked very closely together across a range of areas, including climate action, sustainable urban development, resource efficiency, environmental governance, and regional policy dialogue. Through this collaboration, we have generated knowledge, supported capacity building, and helped strengthen the evidence base for policy making across the region. And most recently, our partnership has expanded further through our joint work on advancing synergies between climate action, biodiversity conservation, pollution reduction, and sustainable development. The launch of the Asia-Pacific Synergies Report yesterday is a testament to the value of our collaboration. This MOU will allow us to join forces in the implementation of the Regional Program of Action on advancing synergies for sustainable development in Asia-Pacific for the period 2026 to 2030. And hopefully to be adopted smoothly by member states at the end of this session or committee session, as well as to strengthen ongoing work on climate change and sustainable urban development. My sincere, once again, appreciation to Professor Takeuchi for his leadership and to all colleagues at IGES for their partnership and our continued commitment to sustainable development in our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. I now invite Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, President of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Distinguished Executive Secretary Arumida Alishabana and friends, it is a great honor to be a part of this important ceremony to sign this new Memorandum of Understanding between ESCAP and IGES. Sincere gratitude is extended to Arumida and the entire ESCAP team for outstanding leadership and long-standing partnership. The two organizations share a proud history of collaboration since first signing at an MOU in April 2016. This new agreement will guide the strategic partnership until June 2031. It signals that the cooperation has successfully reached a new and higher level. Of course, the shared goal remains clear. Joint efforts will continue to strengthen the science policy interface and break down institutional silos across Asia and the Pacific. This MOU focuses on three critical priorities. There are 1, climate change, 2, sustainable and resilient cities, and 3, regional action on advancing synergies. These priorities perfectly match the core findings of the newly launched Asia-Pacific Synergies Report. To turn this agreement into immediate reality, rapid progress will be made. Based on Article 9 of the MOU, the cooperation plans for the first 2 years will be formally agreed within 2 months. This initial implementation plan focuses on promoting synergetic solutions at major global and regional events. These include the High-Level Political Forum, UNFCCC COP, and the Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. Furthermore, concrete projects on plastic pollution, waste management, and voluntary local reviews will be advanced at the city level. IGES is fully ready to provide scientific expertise, rigorous analysis, and policy dialogues. Active support will be provided to governments as they translate the synergies report into ESCAP's next regional program of action. Great excitement surrounds the upcoming close collaboration with ESCAP for the 9th Asia-Pacific Urban Forum, which will be held in Yokohama in 2027. This forum will stand as a historic milestone to showcase integrated urban solutions from the circular economy to localized nature-based solutions. Dear colleagues, with 2030 fast approaching, there is no time to waste. Let us MOU be utilized not just as a legal document, but as a driving vehicle for real transformation. Together, ESCAP and IGES will continue to co-create knowledge and co-deliver a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future for the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, this closes the signing ceremony. Thank you for your attention, and now I hand over the proceedings back to the chair. Binaka Bakalebu, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary and Professor Takeuchi. This brings us to the end of today's session. We will now adjourn and reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp to continue Agenda Item 3 on accelerating progress towards sustainable development through synergistic policies and solutions. May I now call on the Secretariat to make an announcement. Lorenzo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to remind all delegates about the evaluation of the session. As mandated by the Commission, the Secretariat provides delegations with the opportunity to assess the results and the quality of the session through a feedback questionnaire. In this connection, we would like to request each participant to complete a brief online survey through the link available on the committee webpage under the Overview tab. You will also see a signage at the entrance of this conference room providing the link to the survey and the QR code, and you can see it also here on the screens now. And we thank you in advance for the valuable feedback and the time to provide us with your valuable feedback that will enable us to serve you even better next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your patience and your indulgence for lasting till now for this session. The meeting is adjourned.